Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 34 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 67, The Parent Traps. After coming to terms on their little agreement, Silas and his team lead Swindle and Skullcruncher back to their base of operations. Granted, it wasn't so easy since they had to somehow hide a giant, robotic crocodile, but they lucked out when they came upon an abandoned trailer and a tarp in the abandoned base's boneyard. So now, in the hidden underground MECH facility, Silas and Swindle watched on as the group's best intel gatherers combed the web, searching for the identities of the children the latter had shown them. The fact that you humans are capable of creating such an intricate network is impressive. Swindle mused. Do not underestimate our species' knack for technological advancement. Silas reprimanded. While it is still impressive, the internet was invented almost 200 years ago. It's since become a part of everyday life, and as a result, people don't treat it as special as it should be. Swindle hummed in acknowledgement, only for several beeps to suddenly come from the computer, with one of the agents speaking up. Sir, we've found several matches. This made the conbot quite excited. Already? Amazing. He peered closer to the screen, and sure enough, there they were. The humans who had stranded him on this dust ball. Izuku Midoriya, age 15. Quirk. Superpower. Kyoka Jiro, age 15. Quirk. Earphone Jack. Ochako Uraraka, age 15. Quirk. Gravity. Momo Yaoyorozu, age 15. Quirk. Creation. Itsuka Kendo, age 15. Quirk. Big Fist. There they are. They seem like quite the rambunctious group. I doubt it. Silas shook his head. I've served in the army before, and I know troublemakers when I see them. He began reading the teens' profiles. These 5 seem like ordinary teenager, but then, that's when he saw it. Silas's mouth fell open when he saw the 6 words next to their photos, and they all said the same thing. Enrolling in UA. High's hero course. What? They go to UA. Hi. Silas spun around and sent a glare up to Swindle. Did you know about this? No. Swindle shook his head. Is that a problem? Silas's expression hardened as he went back to the screen. Potentially. UA. High school is the most prestigious hero academy in Japan. The same one where the symbol of peace, All Might, graduated from and currently teaches. He narrowed his gaze up to Swindle. If this gets the #1 pro hero on our asses, then we can kiss this operation and deal goodbye. Swindle's optics widened at that. If Silas was this concerned over this, All Might, then he had to find some way to factor him out of the equation. I see. Well then, we need to make certain that he doesn't find out. He sent a smirk down to Silas. Have you or your men ever faked an emergency situation? Several times, but how can you be certain that All Might will fall for something like that? What better way to make something seem real, Swindle gestured over to his partner in crime, than to have it be real? Scully, you still have that hollow projection augmentation gear I gave ya? Skullcruncher smirked and gave a thumbs up. Hey, I sure do. Beast mode. In one fell swoop, the Croctobot went from 2 legs to 4, entering his beast mode, and then, something astonishing happened. A flash of blue light was briefly seen around Skullcruncher, and what was once an entirely metal crocodile now appeared as an entirely organic croc, that was still monstrously huge. Hee, didn't think I'd ever get to use this after our stint in the swamps of Bogus 4. A chuckle escaped Swindle's throat, seeing the members of MECH all gawking at Skullcruncher after his little trick. Yep, and this'll make sure All Might's preoccupied for a while. He lowered himself down next to Silas and set the scene. Picture it, Scully bursts onto the scene on some public Japanese beach. He holds off All Might for a while, and that'll distract him from what we're doing. Not a bad idea, Silas conceded. You're rather crafty, my devious ally. It's what I'm good at. Now, is there any way we can demoralize these children in the most harrowing way possible? Silas lifted his chin toward the agents, who immediately started typing again. Tell me, Swindle, are you familiar with the concept of parenthood? The Decepticon pursed his lips, slightly disgusted when he heard the term. Ah, yes, organic species like you breed with one another in order to pass on your genes and ensure the survival of your race. Not a fan, to be honest. It's personally not for me either, but it ensures us a tactical advantage in this situation. Silas explained further. Because what better way to manipulate a child's emotions? Right as he said that, several more profiles appeared on screen, taking Swindle aback a little, than to take those parents away from them. Once more, Swindle peered closer to the screen, going over each and every picture. Next to Itsuka were two people, a middle-aged man with sandy brown hair and teal eyes and a woman of the same age with vibrant red hair and dark brown eyes. Then with Momo, her father had slicked back, jet black hair like her while the mother had long, light brown hair, and they seemed to be rather fancily dressed. Also, the mother bore a very striking resemblance to Momo, to the point she could have been mistaken as an older version of her. Ochako had a fair resemblance to her mother as well, her parents both having brown hair. For Kyoka, though, she shared a fair number of similarities between her two parents. She had her father's eyes while having her mother's hair and quirk. As for Izuku, though, that's where things got strange. Between his kind features, green hair and green eyes, he had several similarities with his mother, but where his father's picture was supposed to be, there was nothing but a blank screen. That's odd. Swindle pointed out. Does this, Midoriya, boy not have a male parent? Silas shook his head. No, that's not the case. He raised a questioning brow to his subordinate. Explain. I'm sorry, sir, but even after an extensive search, we can't find much on the boy's father. All we came up with was a name. The agent typed in another command code and the profiles of the children's parents showed up under their pictures. But, under the blank square, only a name popped up. And it made Silas's eyebrows raise up. Hisashi Midoriya. Swindle again tilted his head toward the man. Ring any bells? Placing a hand to his chin in thought, Silas pondered on the new information. I was familiar with a man named Hisashi back when I worked with the government, but his last name wasn't Midoriya. His gaze narrowed at the blank space. However, given that there's no records of him anywhere on the web, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that they're the same person. When you join secret government agencies, they tend to wipe your civilian life clean from the public record. Interesting, though that probably means we won't be able to apprehend him. Swindle deduced. Yes, whether they're the same person or not, we don't have Hisashi's location, but we do have the rest. Silas began reading off the parents' profiles one by one. Inko Midoriya, a stay-at-home mother who works several part-time jobs. Her quirk is levitation, though she can only manipulate small objects. Next is Kyotoku and Mikajiro. One of the MECH agents picked up. A pair of musicians who work at a Japanese music label. The wife's quirk is earphone jack, like her daughter, but her husband's quirk is apparently called power lung. It allows him to store air in his lungs for an extended period of time, even while screaming at his max volume. Hey, guess that comes in handy as a singer. Then there's Ogura and Asana Uraraka. The other agent continued. The father is a construction worker while the mother is stay-at-home. Neither of their quirks are really remarkable, though apparently their daughter inherited a stronger version of the gravity quirk from her mother. Next is Isamu and Akane Kendo. Apparently, the husband's a gearhead who runs an auto repair shop while the mother is a taekwondo teacher. Their daughter inherited her quirk from her father. And finally, ACH. No way. Silas and Swindle both leaned forward intently. What is it? The latter asked. Momo Yaoyorozu's parents, the agent sputtered. Their names are Taro and Yua. She's related to those Yaoyorozus. Understanding immediately, Silas's eyes widened in astonishment. Taro Yaoyorozu, the billionaire philanthropist and real estate mogul. Those 5 words instantly made dollar signs appear in Swindle's vision, and his smile widened so much that the shine of his metal teeth gleamed in the darkened room. I'm sorry, did you say billionaire? A single nod came from the MECH leader. Yes, Taro Yaoyorozu and his brother was once led an aspiring hero team who wanted to give back to the world. But, after the sudden death of his father, he inherited the family business and retired from being a hero at only 20 years old. His brows furrowed at the screen. This immediately presents a problem, though. He and his wife are likely under constant surveillance. We won't be able to get to them easily. After thinking the situation over for a moment, a spark in Swindle's processor ignited a bright idea. Well then, if we can't get to the parents, he tapped his finger on Momo's picture. Then why don't we go directly for her instead? Why the sudden change in plans? Silas questioned. I thought you wanted these children to suffer. Chuckling again, Swindle elaborated. Well, think about it, if we try to capture a pair of billionaires, there's a decent chance that'd end in failure. And even if we did, their daughter wouldn't know what to do. His smirk increased as he set his sights on Momo's picture. But, do you have any idea of how much an heiress' parents will pay to get her back? So you're thinking of the money, then? Hee, when it comes to the kid, he always thinks about the money. Skullcruncher said before assuming robot mode again. And honestly, I'm in agreement. We'll get a lot more out of this if we target the girl. After all, we might not be able to get close to her parents, but we could make a brief period where she's unsupervised. What do you think? An interesting idea. We'll work on it, Silas concluded, focusing on the images of their targets. Very well. We start this operation ASAP. Contact Black and have him send the SUV. Just then, however, another voice popped in over the computer speakers. Oh ho, dear Silas, the screen suddenly switched to an audio display, where the voice continued, I've already heard everything. I must say, you've taken a great risk, and I like it. A growl escaped the MECH leader's throat. Graw, Black, you know how much I detest your spying. Oh, come now, I've saved you the trouble of having to call me. Be more reasonable, would you? I'll send my squad to you soon. Black implored before his attention went to Swindle. And as for you, our new, robotic ally, you have quite the knack for forethought. As Silas stated, I am Mr. Black. Tell me, though, what is your name again? Holding his head up high, the Decepticon declared his name. Swindle, good sir. A pleasure to meet you. Likewise. Black reciprocated. Well then, Swindle, I believe this will be the beginning of a very prosperous partnership. Musudafu, Japan, 2 days later. It had been a few days since Izuku Midoriya had come back from his internship, and his mother, Inko, couldn't be any happier for him in his progress. It was strange, but ever since his quirk revealed itself, it seemed like he himself was changing, growing with each passing week. No longer was he the timid, slouching little boy she had raised, now, he was a strong, confident young man who stood up straight almost constantly, which had the added benefit of showing his new, toned physique. Goodness, if Izuku didn't have his sights set on Kyoka already, I bet he'd have ladies swarming him when he gets older. Inko thought to herself in amusement. She was currently returning home from a shopping trip, walking up the steps to her apartment. It's amazing, every day, he resembles his father more and more. She took a brief moment to look out to the sky, smiling wistfully. Hisashi, if only you could see your boy now. You'd be amazed at how much he's grown. With that, though, she continued up the steps. She had a lot to get ready for later on that night, after all. Just as she went to fish her keys out of her pocket, though, she saw something that made her heart briefly skip a beat. There, standing in front of her apartment waiting by the door, was a man in a strange suit. It was orange and black with, what seemed to be engine parts on the back and wheels in his boots. His lower face was left exposed, allowing her to see his rather pointy nose and chin. He adjusted the goggles over his eyes and smiled, flashing his sharp teeth. Well, about time you showed up. He pushed himself off the door frame as Inko's features were etched with fear, the woman moving to back up. Who are you? What are you doing at my home? Hey, calm down, lady, I'm not gonna hurt ya, the man assured. The only reason I'm here is 'cause my employer's got some beef with your son. So, I'm gonna make this quick. If anything, that terrified Inko even more. Her son already had a close call with the hero killer, so naturally, any more villains coming after him sent chills through her soul. What do you want with Izuku? Please don't hurt. But, in the blink of an eye, the man started rushing his way around Inko in a perfect circle, whipping all the air straight up. What are you do, Before Inko knew it, there was nothing left to breath, and it didn't take long for her to faint on the spot. Coming to a stop, the speedster smirked at his successful capture and radioed his bosses. This is Nanosec. Capture complete. See ya back at base. He went to pick Inko up, and immediately remembered that he was up several flights of stairs. Crap, should have thought this through. Over on the complete opposite side of town, meanwhile, Kyotoku Jiro wasn't having a good time. Not because he'd been tasked by his wife to set the table, but because there'd be 5 places to set instead of 4. His daughter had outwitted him. She knew his game, wanting to put the fear of God into the boy she had made friends with. And in recognizing that, she had asked her mother exclusively if they could have Izuku's mother over as well, and of course, Mika had quickly approved of the idea without his consultation. He loved his wife, he truly did, but she had a habit of being a fun killer. "Sweetheart, how's the table looking?" Mika asked from the oven, already starting the prep work for their dinner in just a couple hours. "Pretty good, hun," the long-haired blonde replied with a sigh. "Plates and silverware are all set." He peered over to the oven, where he saw the love of his life preparing something by hand. "Ooh, what you got there?" Mika glanced back to him and smiled. HM, it's going to be katsudon. Apparently, it's Midoriya's favorite, so I went and bought some ingredients to do it homemade." That made Kyotoku's lips tighten a bit. Katsudon, wonder if there's any way I can, CHNK*, Gia. What did I? Pulling her earphone jack back, Mika sent her husband a narrow-eyed glare. "I will not allow you to tamper with the boy's meal, dear. Our goal should be to encourage his friendship with Kyoka, not scare him off." Her eyes drifted back to the cooking pot in front of her. "And besides, his mother will be here, and I'd rather not get taken to court for food poisoning." She heard her husband sigh again and he went to turn away, but she reached out and grabbed his hand before he could. "Kyotoku, do you remember what my father did to you when he found out we started dating?" Yeah. Kyotoku gulped, remembering the moment all too well. "He threatened to string me up by my, you remember the rest." "I do. Now, would you want the same thing to happen to Izuku for just being a friend to Kyoka?" Mika continued, making eye contact with her husband. "I mean, they aren't even dating, dear." "Yet," the singer reminded. "They're not dating yet," and, craning his head down, Kyotoku's grasp on his wife's hand tightened. "That's what I'm afraid of. I don't know if I can let our little rockstar go yet." A soft smile graced Mika's features and she brought her husband into a hug. "I know. She's growing up so fast, and the fact that she wants to be a hero is still something that we're both trying to come to grips with, I'm sure." She pulled away to look at him again. "But remember, we supported her decision from the very beginning, and we should do the same for whatever relationships she makes, romantic or otherwise." That made Kyotoku raise his brow. "Every relationship? Well, I mean, if it's obvious that they're a complete ass, then yes, we'd intervene." Mika admitted. "But from everything we've heard and what little we've seen, does Midoriya come off as someone who'd really take advantage of our girl?" Kyotoku let out another breath and nodded. "All right, I'll give the kid a shot." The man received an immediate reward when his wife leaned in and kissed him, which lasted a good 5 seconds before she pulled away. "Good answer. Now, let's." Ding dong. At the sound of their doorbell, the couple's heads went straight to their front door, making their way into the living room to investigate. What in the world? Kyotoku reached for a speaker next to their front door and pressed a button, talking directly into it. "Yes, who is it?" Forgive me for the intrusion," came a woman's voice from the other end. She sounded polite, though her Japanese was noticeably off a little. "I'm a little lost and I was hoping to ask for some directions to the nearest post office." Mika peeked out the nearest window, seeing a rather lost-looking teenaged girl standing just outside their gate. Her hair was a vibrant blonde with the ends dyed pink, and she wore a pink t-shirt with blue jean shorts and a black backpack over her shoulder. She was also a foreigner, which explained why her Japanese was a bit rusty sounding. "Please help me." The girl bowed her head. "I've been getting on the wrong trains all day and it's just been the worst." A short chuckle passed Mika's lips. It wasn't the first time a foreigner asked her for directions, and she doubted it'd be the last. She went over and opened the door, calling out to the girl. "The nearest post office, you said?" Mika pointed down the street. "It should be a little ways past here. Just go down the street and take the third right, you'll be there in no time." "Oh, thank you so much." The young woman smiled back. I really appreciate it. But then, her smile changed to a devious smirk. Here, let me thank you. Wham! Kyotoku and Mika were both thrown off their feet as something landed directly in front of their house, and their eyes widened as it stared back down at them. It was a large, winged, robotic unicorn, the beast taking a few extra steps forward as its horn began to glow. Mika. Kyotoku went to shield his wife. Get out of. Poof. Huh. Unexpectedly, though, what expelled from the horn was nothing more than a glittery, pink cloud of smoke. The mechanical horse stood still as the cloud fell over the pair, who suddenly started feeling quite drowsy. What is, Z's? Kyotoku's question would go unanswered as he and his wife fell to the floor, succumbing to their slumber. Ah, excellent work, my dear powdered sugar. Penelope praised after climbing over the fence, brushing her hands through her steed's mane. She raised a finger up to her comm and reported, "This is Professor Sutton, I've apprehended the Gyros. Coming back to HQ now." After loading the two onto powdered sugar and throwing something inside the house, the young genius took off into the sunset, leaving a street full of unconscious civilians behind. No witnesses. Aichi Prefecture, Yaoyorozu residence. In a much different part of Japan, RC had pulled up in front of the Yaoyorozu family mansion, the front gate of which took up nearly the entire street it was on. She opened her passenger door and Momo got out, giving the pink Autobot an appreciative smile. Thanks for driving me home, RC. She also sent her classmate a nod. And you make sure to get home safe, too, alright Ochako. I will. The brunette winked. Right after our big dinner plans, that is. Ah, right. Momo recalled. You and Itsuka are having dinner with your families, right? Ochako giggled in excitement. Hee, yeah. Ever since we found out we lived in the same apartment building, we thought it'd be fun to have our parents meet up and we'd all do something fun together. Hearing that, a sly grin came to the heiress' lips. Is that so? Apologies if I'm assuming here, but that sounds a lot like something that couples would think of doing. And just like that, Ochako's happy face went to one of utter shock. Did something happen on that internship that we weren't made aware of, Ochako? What? The gravity user screamed as her pink cheeks went to beet red, waving her hands in front of her in instant denial. No way. It's not like that at all. Itsuka and I are just friends, seriously. Despite themselves, Momo and RC couldn't help but giggle a bit at how flustered she was, but they were also quick to console her, too. Ochako, I was just kidding. Momo winked. I know you two have gotten to become really good friends since you found out about your living arrangements, and I'm happy to see it. Same here. RC's holoform gave a thumbs up. Speaking of which, we need to go if we're gonna make that dinner. We'll see you later, Momo. Why yeah, see ya later. Ochako bowed her head to Momo as RC pulled away from the curb, though the moment couldn't help but linger in her mind. Geez, what is wrong with me? I get flustered way too easily. I mean, really, me liking Itsuka that way. I should have known Momo was messing with me from the start, at least, I think. Back at her front gate, Momo took in a deep breath and went in, where she was immediately met with a very fancy golf cart, which was manned by a large, blue-furred man. He was quite ape-like, complete with a wide and low stance and rather large arms. He wore a fancy black suit, though he didn't wear any shoes thanks to his primate feet. Left his overcoat unbuttoned, too, as his chest was incredibly broad and it couldn't be closed up. Lady Momo. The man bowed politely, addressing her in a deep voice. I'm glad to see you've made it home safely. Maurice. Momo bowed back. Thank you for picking me up, as always. The ape man, Maurice, let out a chortle. Always quite the trek, getting between here and the front door. I keep telling your father to invest in a moving sidewalk. But then he wouldn't be able to use the walkway as a drag strip anymore. Momo rolled her eyes. True. Come, your parents want to speak with you before they head off. The news made Momo's eyebrows raise as she boarded the golf cart. Mother and father are leaving tonight. This is the first I've heard of it. For what reason? You'll find out once we arrive. Maurice winked before driving to the front door. After about 10 minutes, they got to their destination, where they were again met with two more suited agents. One was a tall Englishman with dark, spiky hair and dark shades, even though it was still clearly night. He was in a similar suit as Maurice, though his was more well kept and had the addition of black gloves and matching shoes. Next to him, though, was a rather buff Caucasian woman with long, wild blonde hair. She was also in a suit, but left the overcoat unbuttoned as well, revealing her incredibly toned abs and the fact that her upper chest was wrapped in thick tape. There were a pair of long, golden horns sticking out of her head and she wielded a massive club, her hands and feet equipped with long claws that prevented her from wearing gloves or shoes. Instead, she wore black sandals. The woman flashed a sharp-toothed grin over to Momo as she arrived. Hey, there's our little lady. Oh, Tony, good evening. Momo smiled back to her personal bodyguard before nodding to the tall man. And Agent Barker, good evening to you, as well. Lady Momo. Barker bowed, his voice laced with a British accent. It's good to see you home. Your parents have been waiting for you. They should be down any. Click. Not 2 seconds later, the rather extravagant front door opened, signaling their arrival. Speak and they shall arrive, I suppose. Momo couldn't help but stare in amazement. Whenever her parents went out, it was usually a special occasion, but this must have been very special. Her father was in one of his standard suits, but he wore his favorite red tie and matching shoes, while her mother was likewise in her favorite red dress and heels. The two of them were laughing with one another as they practically danced out of their house, with her father spinning and dipping her mother on the top step. Oh, my, Momo uttered. This was enough to catch their attention, her mother quickly urging her husband to let her up. Oh, Taro, dear. Yua pat his shoulder. Right, hee. Taro hoisted his wife back up and they linked arms before proceeding down the step, all while speaking to their daughter. Momo, sweetheart, welcome home. Father, mother. Momo beamed as they approached. It's good to see you in such high spirits. Might I ask, what's the occasion? Yua grinned right back as she produced a piece of paper from her red purse. This morning, we received an invitation to a very high-class auction party. It was arranged at literally the last minute. Taro explained further. I checked online and one of my old friends is arranging it. Turns out his grandfather recently passed away and there's quite a number of antique memorabilia that must go. Including, the Yaoyorozu patriarch pulled out his phone and showed his daughter a picture. This. At that point, Momo's jaw dropped. This was either an incredible coincidence or the universe was messing with her. Because right there in front of her eyes, was a black 2023 Chevrolet Camaro with red racing stripes. Oh, my word, Momo uttered. Father, that would be an incredible boon to your collection. Tony's eyes lit up when she saw the picture as well. Damn, boss, that's badass. Taro chuckled and sent them a wink. I'm well aware. And, for the occasion, we decided to go in colors that matched the car I'm eyeing. He reached out and took hold of Yua's hand. Which just so happened to be our favorite colors. A sigh passed Yua's lips as she leaned into her husband's chest. And with our summer trip to Italy coming up, it'll make for the perfect car to take. Can you imagine? Driving through the scenic countryside. Just then, her calm expression changed to a much more eager one, thrusting her arms out to make it seem like she was holding a steering wheel. All while going at top speed like in our younger days. Ha, it should be so invigorating. Momo, Taro and the mansion's security force all sweat dropped at the woman's enthusiasm. It wasn't unusual to see Yua's reservedness give way to excitement, but she seemed exceptionally so about this. Ha, I'll say, sweetheart. Taro agreed before placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. We'll be back later tonight, so you'll probably be eating without us. That's all right, I understand. Momo nodded. Best of luck bidding on the car, father. Hey, I've always got it on my side. Taro winked before linking his arm with Yua's. Well, off we. Excuse me. The call from the front door alerted the group to another new arrival. The person strolling out of the mansion was a very tall man, though most of that was attributed to his long, stilt-like bird legs. He was dressed in, mostly traditional butler's attire, with the only exception being his pants which were instead shorts to accommodate his legs. Also, sticking out of his back were a pair of large, pink pheasant wings, and his wavy hair was equally as bright pink to match. He was Japanese and wore thick spectacles on his face, though he had to lean down slightly in order to look his employer in the eye. I suggest you take these if you want to go anywhere, sir. Taro glanced down to the silver platter, and saw that it had his keys on it. Oh, thank you so much, Takaru. He took his keys and quickly pocketed them. I must be so excited about the Camaro that I forgot I had to take something to get to the auction house. The butler, Takaru, adjusted his glasses and bowed politely. It's my pleasure, sir. With Mr. Uchimura on vacation, someone has to stay on top of things here. Though I still wish you'd allow me to drive you. He stood to his full height and scanned his eyes across the area. I can't explain why, but I have an odd feeling about tonight. You're being superstitious, Takaru. Taro shrugged off. You were always the cautious one, even more so than John over there. Agent Barker's eyebrows furrowed. Sir, I have a right to be cautious when it comes to the safety of your family. The Brit craned his head down slightly. That said, if you're confident in this decision, then I won't stop you. But if there's any sign of trouble, please call at once. Maurice extended a hand out to his friend. But we'll hold the line here, as always. Thank you, everyone. Now, Taro nudged his head toward Yua. Shall we? Let's. With that, the couple made their way over to the garage and came out moments later in a blue Chevrolet Corvette Stingray, its engine revving up before it took straight off down the driveway. Momo wore a sarcastic grin and rolled her eyes over to Maurice. You see, he is incorrigible. Takaru groaned in exasperation after seeing the peel-out himself. Fantastic. More skid marks to cover up. He shook his head and diverted his attention to Momo. But that can wait until tomorrow. Lady Momo, I believe it's almost time for your nightly study session. Shall we get started? Of course. Thank you, Takaru. As they went into the mansion, though, Agent Barker whispered to Tony, go with them. I want the young miss well guarded tonight. Tony responded with an understanding hum and followed the two in, leaving just Barker and Maurice outside. Come, we'll do a quick sweep of the perimeter. The gorilla man hesitantly followed his more high-strung companion, not feeling the same worry as he was. I have to say, your instincts must be kicking into overdrive tonight, John. Maurice didn't get an immediate response, so he decided to keep going. Your concern for Momo's safety is understandable, undoubtedly. But remember, she just got back from an internship at Edgeshot's agency. If there's anyone who'd be able to teach the young miss about self-defense, it's the number 4 hero. I don't doubt the young miss's abilities, Maurice, but, snap, wait, did you hear that? Barker's head snapped over to the heavily wooded area of the estate, his eyes beginning to glow a bright yellow. I swear, I heard something in there. I didn't, wait. Maurice backed away as Agent Barker's whole body began to change. Where once stood a man now stood a large, black-furred werewolf, its maw open and fangs bared. Oh geez. Grr, I'm going to investigate. Barker growled. Remain here, I'll signal if I need backup. Maurice stretched his hand out as the werewolf went on all fours and bounded into the darkness. John, wait, what's the use? He has a one-track mind. The gorilla man kept his focus on the trees, hearing the rustling of Barker's movements getting further and further away, until a perturbing noise came from the forest. Thunk, followed by a pained howl. Greoru. A chill went through Maurice's very core. John, without a moment to spare, he put a hand to his earpiece and called the others. Tony, Takaru, lock the mansion up. We have an intruder. He didn't even give them a moment to reply before he was off, bounding through the trees at surprising speed. As he raced into the forest, his mind was also racing, begrudging himself for not taking his friend seriously. Damn it, he was right. There is something going on, I should have gone with him. Thankfully, it didn't take long for him to come across his lycanthropic friend, but when he saw him, he let out a gasp. Barker was laid out on the forest floor, clutching at an arrow in his side. Maurice, get away from here. He growled. The young miss needs to be secured. Already on it, Maurice assured as he landed on the ground. Takaru and Tony are locking up the mansion as we speak. He approached his friend and inspected the wound, noting the angle of the arrow, as well as how archaic it was. I have to say, never would have expected someone to use an arrow in today's day and age. What are we, animals to be hunted? That earned him a deadpan glare from the werewolf, which was returned with a sheepish smile. Let me rephrase that. Just get the damn thing out of me. But Maurice shook his head. Can't do that, not without bringing you to a doctor. That thing could have punctured an artery for all we know. He went to pick Barker up gently. Come on, we're getting you to, Urk. Unfortunately, the ape-man wouldn't get to do that as he fell forward, losing consciousness immediately. Maurice. Maurice. Barker went to stand, ignoring the stinging pain in his side. I've gotta get. Ah. A flash of light out the corner of his eye alerted him to something flying in from the trees, and he avoided it just in time. Seeing it stuck in the ground, he identified it as another arrow, with a syringe as an arrowhead. A similar syringe was sticking out of Maurice's backside, no doubt used to put him to sleep. Bollocks to you, good sir. Barker's head flew up, his enhanced hearing allowing him to pinpoint the direction the voice came from. Come out and show yourself, villain. Ha, I would hardly call myself a villain, even if my compatriots prefer that moniker. I consider myself more of a dashing rogue, if you will. The agent's head whipped around in shock. The voice was moving at surprising speeds around him, leaving him confused. Though I also think of myself as many things. A master marksman, a chivalrous gentleman, and of course. Wham! Ow! One kick to the back of the head and Barker was once again on the forest floor, where he was immediately hit again and taken out cold. Standing over him, the angry archer wore a victorious, buck-toothed grin. An expert ventriloquist. Fare thee well, beasts. I must now procure what I came here for, the lovely young lass. Tally-ho. Leaping back into the trees, Archer shot a zipline arrow back toward the mansion, allowing him a quick and easy traversal through the woods. Back at the mansion itself, things were going into complete lockdown. Doors were being locked, windows shuttered, and any other potential entrances were closed off altogether. All the while, Takaru and Tony were rushing Momo straight to her room, all while the girl was left reeling by everything happening. What is going on? What's happened with Maurice and Agent Barker? We aren't sure yet, miss. Takaru replied, reaching her room and opening the door. But we cannot take any chances if a villain is on the mansion grounds. Now get in there and get into your closet, young lady. Tony demanded, pushing Momo into the incredibly spacious room within a room. We'll come get you if there's any updates, but for now, just lay low. Momo nodded in understanding. Alright, of course. As the door closed, though, the creation user made a snap decision, taking out her phone to send out a message. But then, boom, ah. Momo shrieked as the explosion rocked the walls around her, seeing a flash of light from under the door. She quickly typed the message to her parents and sent it, her brain then moving on to quickly go over her other options. Come on, Momo, think. Edgeshot told you that the key to any tight situation is to think clearly and on your feet. She could hear footsteps approaching at this point. I don't know if I can prevent myself from being kidnapped. If I use my quirk to fight him, I'd be breaking the law, but nothing says I can't use my quirk to make sure they find me. With that in mind, she quickly used her creation quirk and hid what she made just under her coat rack, making sure it'd be spotted by anyone who came in, except for the villain. Momo stood upright as door opened, where she was met with a man dressed like Robin Hood. There you are, fair maiden. I had a feeling that these ruffians would keep you close at hand. Why you, sir, are the only ruffian I see, the heiress declared with a swipe of her hand, only for the archer to catch her by the wrist. Gah. Oh. I would not try to abscond now, if I were you. After all, the archer craned his head back to the unconscious Tony and Takaru, both sporting light burn marks from the explosion. You could end up like them. Wah, what did you do to them? Raising a finger, the archer wagged it at her. Oh, worry not, I simply used some of my patented knockout gas on them. However, their injuries could always be worse. He leaned forward and narrowed his eyes at her. We would not want that, now would we, dear girl? Bam ** bam. Their sights went straight to the bolted door, which was starting to splinter as something rammed into it. Lady Momo. Are you alright? One guard shouted. We're coming in. HMPH, of course. Reaching into his quiver, the archer took out an explosive arrow, removing the head of it so that it was just a regular bomb. I shall make this a far easier decision for you. Come with me or your entire security force gets blown to smithereens the moment they barge in. Clock's ticking, my dear. Pursing her lips, Momo knew this was a no-win situation. No, I'll come quietly. I can only assume you want to ransom me to my parents, correct? Precisely. Returning the bomb to his quiver, the archer yanked Momo straight to the window, where a small escape ship came lowering down to meet them. Now, all aboard my trusty steed. Sir Silas has already made accommodations for your arrival. Silas. Momo wondered to herself, ignoring the fact that she was now locked into the passenger seat by several clamps. Where have I heard that name before? Little did she know that she would soon find out as the ship took off into the night, leaving a devastated security force behind in its wake. Meanwhile, Taro Yaoyorozu was currently very confused. He and his wife could only stare in confusion at the abandoned building in front of them, one that was on the outskirts of town and very much not an auction house. Did we get the wrong address? He asked, glancing to his beloved Yua. Holding up the invitation, Yua's eyes shifted between the address on the paper and the one on the outside gate. And indeed, they were a match. It seems correct. She furrowed her brow and sent a concerned look to her husband. Taro, something doesn't seem right about this. You're right, dear, the billionaire agreed, getting out of his car with Yua not far behind. I'm starting to think this is either some prank by my friend, or our mail might have been tampered with. The couple approached the gate with trepidation, scanning the darkened lot to see if there was anyone or even anything else there with them. But, right as they were about to approach the building itself, a voice called out to them. Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Yaoyorozu, right on time. The couple gasped and whirled around, just in time to see a small drone copter come flying down in front of them. It hovered about 7 feet above the ground before aiming a tiny lens down below, projecting a holographic image. Before them stood a scarred, older man in black body armor, his countenance quite grim even with an unsettling smile on his face. I see you received my invitation. Why your invitation? Taro stood in front of his wife, instinctually entering his protect mode. What do you mean? This invite was from a friend of mine. Where's the auction house? And who are you? Well, obviously it's not here. The man replied sarcastically. But as for who I am, my name is Silas, and I am here to inform you that one of my agents has just performed a successful raid on your home. The rich couple were struck with horror, but the next piece of news much more harrowing for them. Furthermore, we have your daughter. And that's when Yua lost it. No. In a flash, the woman created a knife in her hand, raising it threateningly at Silas while her husband held her back. You son of a bitch. If you so much as hurt a single hair on my baby girl's head, I swear, I will add more scars to your face. Why Yua, please, breathe. But Taro had to admit, he was just as upset as she was. Their daughter had just been taken by whoever these people were, and he wouldn't stand for it. After bringing his wife back to his side, he glared at Silas, his eyes briefly flashing bright red. What is it you want, you bastard? Ransom. Very astute of you, Mr. Yaoyorozu. Silas affirmed, briefly glanced over to a seething Yua. And worry not, ma'am, I wouldn't dream of injuring your daughter. After all, she is a valuable bargaining chip. If anything, that only made Yua even more upset. As for the ransom, 10 million. And that's in US dollars, please. Taro clenched his teeth. That was steep, as expected, but getting his daughter back was worth any price. Fine. Name the time and place. But Silas shook his head. Not yet. My people must make certain that the police are not involved. Should you try to go to them, it will not end well for you. The leader of MECH briefly shifted his eyes away, his attention caught by someone else. Ah, excellent. He nodded to the Yaoyorozus one last time. Forgive me, but some other guests of mine have arrived. I will deliver the time and location to you first thing in the morning. Right now, though, I suggest you check in on your home. My mercenary left it in a rather sorry state. Farewell. The hologram disappeared and the drone began flying away, much to Yua's disdain. No, you low-life cretin, you get back here. Despite her wrathful screams, there was nothing she could do to stop it, and it wasn't long before her distress gave way to anguish. Auk. Yua fell to her knees and wept, Taro keeping hold of her shoulders as he fell with her. Damn it. Damn it. We should have listened to John. He was right. He was. Taro's anger was growing by the second. How had he not seen it? He should have trusted his best guardsman from the start. This is my mistake, though. And I'm going to correct it. He cupped his wife's cheek, bringing her watery eyes up to meet his. I swear, Yua, I will get our daughter back. I promise. Taro, ah. Yua fell into his embrace and cried as hard as she could, all while he comforted her. But then, something odd happened. Blip blip, what? Wiping her tears away, Yua reached into her purse and pulled out her cell phone, her eyes widening when she saw who sent the message. Momo. Taken aback, Taro's attention snapped right to the phone. What? How is that possible? It was just as baffling to Yua, too, until she saw the time it was sent. She sent this 20 minutes ago. It probably didn't reach me until now because of a poor signal. Which means it was probably before she got taken. Opening the message, Yua was only left confused. Wait, a phone number. A number, a glimmer of hope sparked in Taro's mind as he reached for his own phone. Maybe it belongs to someone who can help. Are you sure, dear? Only one way to find out. Taro replied, holding the phone up to his ear, and praying he'd get someone who could fix this mess. Back in Musutafu, Jazz had just turned onto Kyoka's street, the Autobot escorting his charge home as he usually did every day. So, tonight's the big night. His holoform craned his head toward Kyoka in his passenger seat. The night that you and Izuku tackle your biggest challenge. You ready for this, Kyo? Taking a deep breath, the punk rocker steadied herself. As ready as I'm gonna be. I think I've finally just accepted that there's no avoiding this. Izuku would have had to have met my parents eventually anyway, so. Yeah, I feel ya. Jazz nodded. Still, I'm betting it won't be as bad as, he trailed off when he noticed something very odd. There were people littered all across the street, and they seemed to be just waking up from a collective nap on the ground. Kyo, is it normal for humans to just conk out in the middle of the street? No, Kyoka replied, also suspicious of what was going on. I'm just as weirded out as, but once her eyes drifted to her house, Kyoka saw that something was very off about it. Namely that the front door was wide open, and no one was outside. Oh god. Jazz, pull over. Thankfully, Jazz picked up on it quickly and did so, the two of them climbing out and rushing straight to the gate. Once they got past that and entered the home, Kyoka shouted, Mom. Dad, why the hell's the door open? Pardon me. Jazz called in as well, making the shoes from his holoform literally disappear. Sorry for coming in unannounced. As the two split off and went through the house on either side, Kyoka immediately saw something very alarming. Who left the damn stove on? She rushed over and switched it off. Thankfully, it was only on low, but it was still enough to bring the pot of water on it to a light boil. But then, she noticed the ingredients strewn about the countertop, her eyebrows knitting together nervously. Wait, they were prepping dinner. Izuku and Inko are supposed to be here in half an hour, why isn't it ready? Kyo. The perplet whipped around as Jazz came sprinting in, holding something in his hand. I scanned the place and the house is completely empty save for us. But I did find something that probably shouldn't be here. He presented it to her, revealing that it was a flat, square-shaped device with a small lens in the middle. Whoa, this looks like the same thing UA used to deliver our entrance exam results earlier this year. Kyoka pressed down on the activation button, her apprehension rising. If her parents weren't there, then this might provide some sort of clue. I guess, let's see what's on it. Across town, Izuku had just arrived at his apartment complex with Bumblebee, and he was in a very similar situation. The moment they had pulled up to the building, the One for All inheritor had noticed that something was off instantly when the lights to his home weren't on. Mom usually only leaves them off when she's out, and she's normally back by this hour. He checked the time on his phone, 6:30 p.m. And the dinner's in half an hour. I doubt she'd miss it. There's one more thing I could try, though. Izuku glanced over to his best friend. B, stay on lookout for me. I need to check something. ZRKT, copy that. B's holoform saluted. Getting out of the Autobot's beetle form, Izuku briefly scanned the area. Nobody's around, and no one seems to be at their windows. He knew he could get in trouble for this, but it was the fastest way up. He activated full cowling and quickly shot up to his apartment floor, grabbing hold of the railing and vaulting himself over to his door. After making sure no one called him out for it, he dashed up to his door and turned the handle. As he'd feared, it was locked. "Damn it, Mom, where are you? You're never usually back this late." Taking out his own home key, Izuku unlocked his apartment and cautiously stepped inside, shifting his eyes around in case this was some sort of ambush. He flicked the lights on and, nothing. Not a soul to be seen. He shut the door and brought up full cowling again, doing a complete sweep of the place. No sign of his mother, not even in her room. At this point, Izuku's mind was racing, trying to rationalize what could have happened. "Oh okay, calm down, she might have just gotten held up by a villain attack. It's a normal occurrence, only I would have heard of it by now if that was the case. Maybe shopping took a bit longer than she thought. No, Mom's lists are pretty concise, so that couldn't be it, huh?" Before he could go on to a full-on mumble fest, though, Izuku spotted something he initially missed on the floor. It was a flat, black, square-shaped device with a lens in it. He recognized it as a hollow projector, the same type that UA often used. It was near the door, so he assumed it had been slipped under, and if anything, that increased his fear tenfold. "Oh God, oh God, oh God," he reached down and pressed down on it, activating the device. From the lens, a holographic screen appeared, and who he saw on it was not who he was expecting. Is it on? Are we rolling? Pulling his head into frame, Swindle peered down the camera and a nefarious smile came to his face. "Ah, good. We're on. Ahem, greetings, young Izuku Midoriya. It's been quite a while, hasn't it?" Swindle. Izuku uttered in horror. What is this? How did you? If you're thinking of speaking back to me, don't bother." Swindle pointed downward. "This message is pre-recorded. Course, you must be wondering, how did I get this into your home? And for that matter, where could your, what's the word?" A soft voice could be heard off-screen and Swindle picked it back up a second later. "Ah, yes, mother. Where could your mother be, It didn't take long for Izuku to get what the Decepticon was implying, his fear growing into rage as full cowling instinctively overtook his form. A chuckle passed through Swindle's vocal processor. Well, the short answer is that I've made some new human allies who share a common goal with myself. To obtain the best technology and weaponry for our self-interests." He raised a finger at Izuku with an accusing glare. "But before that, I've got another goal in mind, to make you and your little femme friends pay for what you did to my ship and merchandise. And what better way to do that, than to hold your family up for ransom? Don't worry, we're not gonna hurt your loved ones, yet. Not unless you can bring us what we ask for." Swindle glanced down and nodded to someone off-screen to which he wrapped his message up. "Well, I've gotta move on to the next calling card. I have no doubt you'll tell the Autobots about this, but don't even try searching for us. You won't even be able to guess where we are. I will send you and your little friends the terms of the ransom tomorrow. Until then, pleasant dreams. Ha ha ha." The message cut out and the screen disappeared, leaving Izuku to fall to his knees as his emotions roiled within him. Swindle had taken his mother. His mother. No, this can't be happening, this has to be a dream. Izuku squeezed his arm until it bruised, but it was no use. He couldn't wake up from this nightmare. He belted out an anguished scream, slamming his fists down and cracking the floorboards. Aaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaa His tears trickled down his cheeks, pocket, and that's when another factor of this reality hit him. Swindle said he wasn't just going after his mother, but also the parents of his femme friends. Who was with me that day again? He thought, his mind still reeling. It was Uraraka, Kendo, Yaoyorozu and, oh God. His hand flew to his pocket and he took out his phone. Just as he feared, it was Kyoka. He answered it right away and didn't even say hello, getting straight to the point. Kyoka. Listen to me, you need to. Izuku, the sound the greenette was greeted with was one he was hoping to never hear in his life. Kyoka was sad. He took them. Swindle took my mom and dad. It was harrowing for Izuku, hearing his normally confident best friend sound so defeated. She sounded on the verge of bursting into tears, and as much as he didn't want to, the news he had to share would only add fuel to the fire. I know. He took my mom, too. Izuku choked out. No, no, no. Fuck. Izuku heard something break on the other end of the line and Kyoka began crying in earnest. He could hear what sounded like Jazz trying to calm her down, but it was helping at all. Izuku, what do we do? We can't let him get away with this bullshit. I know, Kyoka, please, we need to stay calm. Izuku took a deep breath and got to his feet, stomping on the hologram projector on his way out. I'm heading back to base to tell Optimus. I suggest you get back there, and if you can, try reaching Uraraka and Kendo, they're on the target list, too. I'll see if I can get in contact with Yaoyorozu. Damn that Decepticon asshole. Kyoka roared on the other end. Alright, I'm gonna call them. Please, Izuku, stay safe. Izuku gave a resolute nod. Yeah, Just then, his phone beeped in his ear, signaling another incoming call. He didn't recognize the number, but the caller ID did give the name, and Izuku's eyes widened when he saw it. Yaoyorozu, Taro. What? He gave a brief explanation to Kyoka before switching to the other line, answering, hello. You've reached Izuku Midoriya. He was greeted by the hesitant voice of a man, who seemed a bit perplexed. Izuku Midoriya, I'm sorry to have called this late, but I was told to contact you. You're a friend of Momo's, correct? Why yes, we share the same class together. Okay, that's a relief, the man sighed. Forgive my caution, but, I am Taro Yaoyorozu, Momo's father. Please, if there's any way you can help. Sir, please, slow down. Izuku's brows furrowed in confusion. What was Momo's father doing calling him? He expected her to, but this was just strange. What's going on? Are you okay? He heard Taro take a deep breath on the other side, trying to settle himself down. I'm sorry, but, my wife and I just received some incredibly awful news. Our little girl's been kidnapped. The revelation made everything click in Izuku's head, and it became even clearer when Taro went on. She's being held for ransom by a man named Silas. Momo texted your number to us before she was captured, so please, if there's any way you can help us. We will reward you to our best ability. A woman cried out, taking Izuku aback. Just please, help us save our little girl. The desperate pleas didn't fall on deaf ears. With every word, Izuku's anger grew more and more, to the point where the energy of full Cowling threatened to lash out from One for All's host. But, even so, Izuku took a deep breath and steadied himself. He couldn't lose his cool, not yet. That would be saved for Swindle and whatever villains he teamed up with. Sir, ma'am, I know what you're going through right now. These same villains, they've kidnapped my mom and Kyoka's parents. He heard two terrified gasps on the other end, with Yua asking, oh god. Midoriya, did you do something to anger these people? Not directly. Izuku denied. But they've partnered up with someone who we did anger. Where are you right now? We're in an abandoned lot. Taro answered. They tricked us into coming here by tampering with an invitation in our mail. Okay, I want you to stay right where you are and don't go anywhere. Izuku leapt straight down from his floor and landed in a tuck and roll, right next to a startled Bumblebee. Please text me your location as well, that way we can get you easier. But that only made the couple even more confused. Get us. What are you? Izuku practically slammed the door of B's vehicle mode as he got in the passenger seat. Don't worry, things will be made a lot clearer soon. I'm sorry, I need to go for now, but I'll contact you when we're ready. Please stay put, and bye for now. He hung up before Taro could get another word in, and he gave Bumblebee a somber gaze. B, contact Prime and get a ground bridge here. Mom, Kyoka's parents, and Momo all have been kidnapped. Bumblebee didn't need any more than that as an excuse to step on the gas. 25 minutes later. Yua was restlessly pacing through the abandoned lot as Taro spoke on the phone, having made multiple calls over the course of almost a half hour. But, when he hung up this time, he pocketed his phone, the first time he's done so since calling Izuku. Yua's head snapped to him and she ran over as fast as her heels would let her. Well, how are things back home? Well, John's been taken to the on-site doctor to get healed up, and Maurice, Takaru and Tony are just coming to. Taro reached out and grasped his wife's hand, running his thumb over the back of it in apprehension. They sounded so disappointed in themselves, Yua. But I told them that none of this was their fault, it was mine. I should have taken John and Takaru's concerns more seriously, and because of that, we were caught with our pants down. Taro, please. Yua pulled her arm around his neck, bringing him into her embrace. We don't need to play the blame game here. We've lived in that house for almost 20 years and we haven't seen anything at this threat level happen before. Whoever these people are, they're too good for their own good. Pulling back, Yua put on a determined expression. And because of that, they're going to pay for what they've done. Despite his depressed state, Taro couldn't help but smile at his beloved wife, bringing a hand up to cup her cheek. And that, my dear, is why I married you. The couple kissed briefly before Taro brought something else up. Oh, and I also called my brother. He's on his way. That made Yua's eyebrows go straight up in shock. Why your brother's here? I thought he was in America doing his hero work. Hey, yeah, it was meant to be a surprise, but, he's home. Taro waved his hands. Surprise. Oh dear. Yua rolled her eyes. Well, it's certainly going to be interesting. Blip 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 blip. Before they could discuss the matter further, Taro's phone went off again, and he immediately brought it to his ear. Hello. Midoriya. Mr. Yaoyorozu. Good, I'm glad you picked up so soon. Izuku replied. We're ready to pick you up. You're still in the same place as before, right? Taro's features hardened, none too pleased about how the boy was being so vague. Yes, but why did you tell us to stay put? And at a time like this? I want answers, young man. Izuku stammered on the other end. And you will, sir. Very soon, I promise. Just, be prepared for what you're about to see. May, fire it up. CHYOOM. Yua and Taro both flinched and spun around, a bright light and loud sound alerting them to something very strange. Directly in the middle of the lot was a massive vortex of bluish-green light, one that nearly left them blinded with how bright it was. Their mouths were agape by what they were seeing, but Izuku's voice snapped them out of their stupor. Please proceed through the portal, both of you. We'll meet up and you'll get your answers there. I understand. Taro replied. See you soon. He hung up and looked to Yua, who was naturally hesitant to do anything. But then, Taro reached out and grasped her hand once again, giving her a nod. For Momo. Right. Yua reciprocated. For Momo. Their decision made, the married couple strode through the portal, and once they emerged through the other side, they stepped into a place that neither of them were expecting. It appeared to be an abandoned factory, though the room they were in was chock full of high-tech equipment that neither of them recognized. In fact, they quickly realized that were standing in a piece of equipment as the portal dissipated, revealing the massive metal archway above them. Oh, my. Sir, ma'am. The duo craned their heads around to see, a very disheartening sight. A pair of children who they could only deduce were Izuku and Kyoka. They appeared quite disheveled and so distraught, their eyes red and puffy from crying so much. I'm glad you're here. Izuku bowed to them. Kyoka did the same. Yes, thank you. We couldn't have predicted that all of this would happen. I'm so sorry. No, don't be, dear. Yua asserted, walking up to greet the young girl. You must be Kyoka. Momo speaks very highly of you. Honestly, I think you're the first real friend that she's ever truly had. She smiled softly to her. And she treasures that greatly. Kyoka choked back a sob and almost fell to her knees, but Yua caught her before she could. Please, Mrs. Yao. Call me Yua. The woman insisted, still smiling down to her. I realize our last name can be a mouthful. Why Yua? Kyoka corrected herself as she wiped tears away from her face. Please don't make me cry more. I've already cried more times than I really need this week. After taking a shaky breath, Kyoka collected herself and put on a more determined gaze. But I promise you, we will get Yaomomo back. Those bastards took our parents, too, so they've made this super personal. As they were talking, though, Taro was looking around the place, and quickly realized where they were. Wait a minute, this is one of my father's old manufacturing plants. When he spun back toward the group, a shiver went down Izuku's spine as he stormed up to him, his eyes flashing between red and black. This place was shut down years ago. What in the world is going on here? Is this where you kids have been hanging out after school? I want answers. Thankfully, Izuku was saved by the arrival of a certain bot. I am afraid we are to blame for that, sir. Izuku and Kyoka smiled in relief while Yua and Taro were left even more perplexed when several vehicles of various size, shape and color came rolling into the room. Taro had to do a double take when he even saw some incredibly vintage cars among them, including a yellow VW Beetle. Leading the pack was a red and blue semi-truck, which pulled to a stop directly in front of the bridge platform. Your daughter is the reason we have a place to call home here, and for that, we cannot be more grateful, the voice continued. And it is for that reason, that I will do everything in my power to see that she is returned to you safely. Who are you? Taro asked, his brows furrowed as he stepped in front of Yua with an arm outstretched. What do you mean you've made this place your home? For some time, sir, we have lived among you, hiding in plain sight, and unfortunately, our presence on Earth has brought our enemies here, from beyond the stars, the voice continued. And, much to my regret, it is one of these enemies who has aided in the theft of your daughter. And for that, I am truly sorry. Sir, Izuku spoke up, giving Taro a solemn stare. Before you see this, know that these are the good guys here. The greenette pointed to the semi-truck. And he never goes back on his word. We're going to make everything right. No matter what. He craned his head back to the truck and nodded. Do it. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT. Taro and Yua let out simultaneous yelps as the vehicles suddenly began changing shape, their parts shifting and moving all around until they each had transformed into a group of large, humanoid robots. Standing in a semi-circle around the rich couple, Bumblebee, Jazz, Bulkhead, Red Alert, Sideswipe, Sunstreaker, Strongarm, and Springer peered down at them, with Optimus Prime towering before them in the center. Wah, what is this? Taro exclaimed. What in the world is happening? Yua questioned in a trembling voice. The Autobot leader slowly took a knee, getting down to eye level with the humans. Mr. and Mrs. Yaoyorozu, my name is Optimus Prime. And these are my Autobots. Optimus narrowed his optics gravely. We need to speak immediately. Time grows short, and we must make haste if we are to save your daughter. Shizuoka Prefecture. Ochako and Itsuka were trying to remain as calm as they could. Of all nights for something like this to happen, it just had to be the night where their families were meeting for dinner. They had excused themselves from the table at the same time for different reasons, but in reality, it was actually the same. They'd gotten a message from Kyoka, and what they saw made their stomachs drop. Swindle was coming after them, or more specifically, their parents. Thankfully, Jazz had already informed Prime, and RC and Flare Up were on their way there. But still, they had to make up some excuse as to why they had to leave the restaurant. How the heck are we gonna do this? Ochako asked the redhead as they approached their table, where their folks were laughing it up and having a good time. They don't exactly seem keen on moving. Itsuka took a deep breath, going over their options. Well, we could always tell them the truth. That earned an incredulous look from Ochako, but the martial artist elaborated further. Not the whole truth, just part of it. Tell them about what happened, then say we need to get out of here because the villains said that we're their next target. The brunette pursed her lips, still uncertain about the plan. And we just don't explain why there are villains after us. Her neighbor only gave a shrug. I mean, that can be covered up by Sector 7 later, right? I don't know if that's how that works. Ochako sighed, finding no better solution to their problem. But I guess if that's our best shot, then we should go for it. As they got closer to the table, they were just in time to hear Itsuka's father, Isamu, let out a hearty laugh. Ahaha, I've gotta say, I still can't get over the fact that our girls were neighbors this whole time and didn't even notice until after the sports festival. Hey, I know, right? Ochako's father, Ogura, replied. Talk about a strange twist of fate, huh? And now suddenly they're doing everything together. Osuna giggled, the gravity user's mother placing a hand on her cheek. Doing homework, going to the same internship, it's kind of cute, honestly. Itsuka's mother, Akane, nodded in approval. Yeah, and they've become quite the pair of martial artists. That battle hero is no joke, I'll tell ya that. Out the corner of her eye, Akane spotted the two girls coming back rather hastily, catching her attention. Oh, Honey, there you are. I was wondering what was taking. Mom, Dad, everyone, we need to go now. Itsuka interrupted. Something awful has happened, Ochako added, making it clear that whatever was happening was no joke. Both Isamu and Ogura stood up, their daughter's distress garnering their full focus. Whoa, girls, slow down, the former urged, reaching out to touch Itsuka's shoulder. What's going on? What happened? Our friend, Kyoka just called and Itsuka swallowed hard. Her parents have been kidnapped. And so have Izuku's. A round of gasps went across the table, and the parents were left even more stunned when Ochako added to it. They also received a message from the ones who did it. They said that, you guys are next. The adults could hardly believe what they were hearing, though. What? Akane stood up next. Why the hell would we be targeted by these people? We haven't done any. Kra Chum. Yeah. A loud, collective scream echoed through the restaurants, the patrons running for their lives as the wall closest to the group's table fell in. The two families ran away as well, but were brought to a halt when a large pillar was thrown in their way, forcing them to stop and spin around to whoever was coming through. Stepping through the cloud of dust was a massive, muscular man with dull gray skin, a white, handlebar mustache, and wore green goggles over his eyes. He only wore a tight, black bodysuit and a gray utility belt around his waist, though his shoulders seemed to have a pair of power cells surgically implanted in them, which gave him his power. Looming over the six of them, Colossus Rhodes slammed his fist into his palm. Ya know, I was only supposed to take your parents in. But thinking about it more, a nefarious smirk spread across his face. I think Swindle will find it even better if I bring you girlies in, too. Chapter 68, Crisscross. Unknown location, Japan. Momo's eyes fluttered open, only to be beholden to even more blackness. She gasped and sat up, her mind racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Where was she? Why was it so dark? And what was she sitting on that was so cold and hard? But, as the questions flew by in her mind, her memory had come back to her just as quickly. Oh, that's right. I was forced to come here against my will. Her eyes narrowing, Momo recalled the archer who had threatened her with the death of her mansion staff if she didn't comply with his demands, and then he knocked her out with sleeping gas the moment she entered his flying vehicle. Likely to make sure I don't know the location of wherever this is. MHA. Just then, a voice cried out from the dark room, making her eyes darted up in shock. Where are we? A man shouted out. What is this PLA? Clang. Ouch. Ha. Kyotoku. A woman's voice gasped as well. Are you hurt? Momo blinked as she heard the name. Kyotoku. Ga, I'm fine, Mika. But I get the feeling we've been taken someplace really bad. Going over the two names in her head, Momo deduced who they must have been in seconds. But that would mean, she carefully stood up and extended her arm, being mindful of her surroundings and immediately feeling the flat roof over her head. Reaching out, Momo felt around and, sure enough, she felt cold, iron bars. She was in a cage, but that wouldn't deter her. Hello. There's someone else here. Mika exclaimed. Hello. Who's there? Even in the darkness, Momo somehow managed to see the reflective surface of a pair of glasses, which was somewhat reassuring to her. My name is Momo Yaoyorozu. You too, who are you? Standing up, carefully this time, Kyotoku replied in a confused tone, Yaoyorozu, wait, are you, oh my god. The slammed his hands around the bars and leaned his head through, calling out, why you're one of Kyoka's friends, right? Yes, are you? Were her parents. The Juro mother affirmed. Kyotoku and Mika Juro. Do you have any idea what's happening here? Momo's expression hardened. I might have one, but if it's what I think it is, we're in for a lot of trouble. Just then, another gasp rang out through the room, and a much more panicked voice jolted the conversation. Where am I? Izuku. Anybody? What's going on? This time, though, Momo recognized the voice almost instantly. Mrs. Midoriya. You're here, too. Who's there? The woman shouted in panic. Kyoka, is that? No, it's Momo Yaoyorozu. Please, try to remain calm, Chum. The four of them collectively gasped as the entire room was lit up all at once. It took a moment for their eyes to adjust, but once they did, they were able to see one another clearly. Inko let out a gasp at the sight before her. She was in a cage, as was Momo and two other people, and the woman in the cage just across from her looked astonishingly like Kyoka. It didn't take long for her to add things up from there. Oh my goodness. Mika, for her part, was stunned as well. Are you, Inko Midoriya? Why yes, the green-haired woman nodded. And are you, the Jiros? Yeah, that's right, the blonde man confirmed, resting a hand on his wife's shoulder. This is my wife, Mika, and my name's Kyotoku. This really isn't how I thought our first meeting would go. Shaking her head, Inko agreed with him. See, certainly not. What even is this? Her hands flew up to her head as she tried to remember what had happened. 1 minute, I'm getting home with the groceries, the next minute, I see some villain at my front door and he goes so fast that he funneled the air away. Sounds like a speedster, Momo noted. And a smart one, too. He knocked you out just by taking away all of the breathable oxygen around you. She craned her head toward the Jiros. What about you two? Do you recall what happened to you? Kyotoku let out a huff. HMPH, how could I forget? A young girl appeared at our door, asked for directions, then knocked us out with her giant, flying robot horse. He received incredulous stares from Momo and Inko after they heard that, making him furrow his brow. Oh, come on, don't act like that's weird, you know there's stranger villains out there. I can back up my husband's story. Mika raised her fist, closing it over her chest. And what's worse is that it's my fault that she got to us. TCH, I should have never opened the door. Sweetheart, no, don't blame yourself, her husband reassured. If you didn't open the door, who's to say she wouldn't have had that robo-horse break it down? Momo nodded to Mika in agreement. He's right, Mrs. Jiro. You still would have been in trouble either way. The heiress shifted her eyes down, thinking to herself out loud. Still, this doesn't make any sense. What villains would just attack a home out in the open like that? A scoff passed Kyotoku's lips. PSH, yeah, in this day and age. There's heroes all around who would have taken notice, and anyone on the street surely would have called it into the police, but as he thought more about it, something clicked in the blonde man's mind. Unless she knocked out everyone on our block beforehand, making sure there were no witnesses. That idea made Inko gasp in horror. So, do you think they could have done the same at my apartment complex? Yes, perhaps. Folding her arms, Momo continued to ponder on everything. Still, the fact that the archer just stormed my home and incapacitated the best workers at my mansion, these aren't just any normal villains. How very perceptive, young lady. The trapped quartet gasped again as a new voice entered the room, bringing their attention outward as another light shined down from the ceiling. There, it revealed an older yet very muscular man with a scarred face, who wore a suit of black body armor. It also shed light upon the very villains who had captured them. The speedster, the archer and the young woman, now in a princess-like outfit, all stood behind the man as he approached the cages. You could say that it's very unconventional villainy. In an instant, Kyotoku snarled and grabbed hold of the bars, shouting at the man. You must be the one behind this whole thing, right? Who are you? Mika stood with her husband, her eyes narrowing in anger. And what do you want with us? Oh, it's not you that we're primarily after, Mr. and Mrs. Jiro. The older man replied. Rather, it's your children and their special friends that are our targets. This managed to etch confusion and fear onto the Jiro's and Inko's expressions as the man continued on. As for myself, you may call me Silas. We are MECH, and this, Silas gestured toward the group of villains, is the Society of Unconventional Villainy. Nanosec, Angry Archer, and Professor Penelope Sutton. A group of quirkless supervillains given powers purely through technology. The answer left all four of them stunned. What? That's outrageous, Kyotoku exclaimed. How can, Gia? All of a sudden, Nanosec rushed up and leaned against the cage, giving Kyotoku a sneering smirk. Seeing is believing, Mr. Iron Lung. Wanna see a demonstration? He raised a fist to Kyotoku for emphasis. Nanosec, that'll be quite enough, Silas ordered, shoving the speedster away. Our goal is to lure the children and Yaoyorozu's here. We're not about to damage our goods. I don't appreciate being referred to as goods, sir. Inko shouted, summoning whatever amount of courage she could. Momo joined in as well. Neither do I. Now what do you want with my friends and my parents? What did we ever do to you? But just then, another voice entered the conversation, and it was one that managed to leave Momo in stunned silence. Oh, it's not them who you've wronged, Miss Yaoyorozu. Her eyes widening in horror, Momo slowly craned her head around and saw a large, military Humvee come rolling forward through the darkness. It came to a halt directly in front of the cages, and then, WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT, it transformed. Within moments, Swindle stood before the trapped humans, zeroing his optics in on the creation user. Guess who's back? This was probably the worst thing that could have happened. Momo's eyes drifted over to Kyoka's parents and Izuku's mother, who all stared up at the Decepticon in utter horror. Damn it all, can't we just go 1 week without the secret being blown? Still, I suppose the cat's out of the bag, so, her expression hardening, Momo slammed her hands against the bars and yelled up at the con bot. Swindle. You Shanix pinching, money grubbing AFT shaft. I should have known you'd be the one to set this up. Whoa, such language. Swindle placed a hand over his chest, feigning being hurt by her words. Never would have dreamed a young heiress like yourself would be using that kind of jargon, but I suppose being around that city speaker friend of yours would lend you quite the mouth. The adults were left understandably confused by everything happening. Momo, what is this? Inko exclaimed. Who or, what is this thing? Momo, do you know him? Mika asked as well. Ah, yes, that's right. Swindle squatted down, getting closer to the parents as they backed away from the bars. You have absolutely no idea what's been going on. Hee, well, what if I told you? He glanced over to Momo, wearing a malicious smirk, that Miss Yaoyorozu and her little friends from school have been getting into plenty of trouble. And yes, that includes your children as well. Kyotoku's expression hardened at the giant robot in disbelief. He knew the daughter he'd raised, and she for sure wouldn't cause any sort of trouble. Whoever you are, you're bluffing. Our children are UA. Students, they don't cause trouble. Oh ho, I beg to differ. Swindle retorted, pressing down on his forearm to bring up a holographic image. What they saw there made the parents' jaws collectively drop, and Momo's heart stopped beating for a second. There, in the image, was her, Izuku, Kyoka, Itsuka and Ochako all escaping through the ground bridge with their Autobot partners, no doubt taken on the day of their last encounter with Swindle. I took this image with my very own optics, right after your children helped the Autobots destroy my ship and all of my merchandise. Needless to say, the adults were left astonished by what was presented. No, this is impossible. Inko's hands flew up to her cheeks, falling to her knees in shock. Has my Izuku gotten in trouble with the government? Far worse, ma'am, Swindle said as he rose back up, his gaze returning to Momo. Your children have gotten involved with an intergalactic war that has lasted over centuries, millennia even. They've chosen to ally themselves with the Autobots, a ragtag group of rebels who somehow are still going even after the Decepticons have taken our home planet of Cybertron. A scoff escaped his vocal processor. HMPH, seems like Optimus Prime still thinks they have a fighting chance if they can regroup on some other planet, and lucky you, Earth was chosen to be that planet. Interesting. Silas noted, giving Swindle a questioning look. Why is that, then? The con bot could only offer a shrug. Hey, heck if I know. A bot like myself could only hope to understand the machinations of the mind of a prime. His optics drifted back to the prisoners before him. But my main point is, your kids have been risking their necks to help these Autobot rebels, and let me just say, they're on the wrong side of this conflict. Don't listen to him, Momo hollered, spooking the adults with just how grave her expression was. He's a Decepticon, a rip-off artist, and for God's sake, his name is Swindle. You can trust him about as far as you can throw him. Again, very harsh words. Swindle noted before indicating his faction symbol. But yes, I am a Decepticon myself, but only because it's fitting for me. I may have joined Megatron's coalition long ago, but trust me, I only did so for my self-benefit. Selling weapons to either side to fuel the war's conflict was such an easy job, he narrowed his sights down to Momo. But then you and your pals decided to ruin it all. Thus, when my paths crossed with MECH's, I saw an opportunity to get back at you all with this little operation. Which I personally like to call, in a surprising gesture, Swindle raised his middle finger to the humans. Operation Frag U. The humans could only stare at Swindle in silent bewilderment, while Silas was grimacing at the crude name. Does frag, in your language mean what I think it means? Swindle chuckled as returned his attention to his ally. Haha, Silas, I've learned that humans have lots of curses that can be applied to our language. And let me just say, it is very satisfying to use them all in the way your people do. I understand, but would it stand you to be a bit more professional here? I'm not running a dog and pony show here, after all. I have no idea what either of those are. Enough. Kyotoku belted out in a very loud voice, no doubt using his quirk to amplify it. I demand an explanation. Both from you. He snapped his head over to Momo, making her flinch. And you, Yaoyorozu. How in the hell did you and Kyoka get dragged into this? How many others are involved? And what even made you think it was a good idea? There were so many questions being stacked on top of her all at once, Momo had no idea how to respond. I just. Chink. Ow. All of a sudden, Kyotoku was jabbed in the neck by Mika's earphone jacks, bringing him to his knees as she gave him a hard look. That is enough, Kyotoku. You aren't helping this situation. The perplexed gaze went back to Momo, who could feel quite a bit of disappointment behind it. It's true that we need answers, but now really isn't the time to discuss that. All I need to know is there a chance that we'll get out of here alive? The angry archer cleared his throat before letting out a brief chuckle. Why of course you will, if thine allies allow it. Come the morrow, we send them instructions that they must follow to the letter. That being, in order of importance, he pointed to Momo first. A handsome ransom for the dear lady, and next, he extended his hand out to the adults. And in exchange for your life, we shall be recompensed with one Autobot. Momo's brows knit together in worry. You want, an Autobot? Silas gave a single nod. Indeed. Specifically, we require their leader, Optimus Prime, in order to begin our experiments. What are you planning? I thought I made our mission statement clear. Silas emphasized, his features hardening. We intend to do away with the status quo of quirks dominating the social zeitgeist and shall instead bring about a new techno-renaissance. The likes of which hasn't been seen for almost 300 years. And to do that, we must vivisect a Cybertronian. The mere notion left Momo disgusted. You want to gut a living being for the sake of technological advancement. She whipped her head up to Swindle. And you're okay with that? PSH, not my body he's using. Swindle shrugged. I made that very clear in our deal. And as a bonus, if I can get rid of Prime, think of how I'll be heralded as a hero by the Decepticons. His smirk twisted into a nefarious grimace as he laughed. Haha. I'll fly up so high on the food chain that I won't have to worry about Onslaught or the rest of those fools bossing me around ever again. From there on, I'll call the shots, W with Megatron's blessing, of course. Momo sneered at his quick change of character. HMPH, I should have known. You're just like Starscream, afraid of the bigger fish in the pond. Stomp. Silence. I will not continue to be insulted like this. He aimed his arm-mounted cannon down at her as it powered up, casting a purple light onto Momo as the Gyros and Inko reeled in horror. Oh, how I would love to destroy you while you stand, but our funding comes first. He lowered his weapon and nudged his head down to the others. Come on, let's work on the next phase of the plan. Agreed. Silas and the SUV followed Swindle out, but not before the MECH leader paused just before the door. We will check up on you again shortly. You should have more visitors sometime soon. His focus moved over to Professor Sutton. Has Agent Rhodes reported in yet? Penelope gave a thumbs up. Totes. He said he was closing in on the Uraraka and Kendo families. Seeing Momo's jaw drop, the professor giggled and waved to her. Haha. Yeah, you heard that right, girly pop. Oh, and he said that your friends were there with their parents, so we're gonna be getting a 6-for-1 deal. Ah, interesting. Swindle piped up, overhearing the conversation. Perhaps then we should charge more on the ransom. Students sound like they'd fetch a pretty price. He. With that, the large garage door slammed shut, leaving the 4 prisoners to reflect on what just happened. I feel like I'm going to be sick, Inko uttered, trembling in place as she looked to Momo for answers. How could you children have been dragged into all of this? Kyotoku grimaced as he sat upon the cold floor of his cage. And, more importantly, willingly gone through with it. Fighting in a war. Do you have any idea what would happen if the teachers at UA found out about this? Or even the government? Momo shuffled awkwardly in place and coughed into her hand. Ahem, well, about that. She received several incredulous stares as she went on. The teachers do know. All Might and Izuku were the first ones to find out about the Cybertronians, after all. And from there, it spiraled out of control. We've also been getting help from a secret government agency called Sector 7. They're the reason why this secret hasn't gotten out to the entire public yet. The adults had no idea what to say, letting the information process for a moment. So you're telling me that not only heroes, but government agents have been allowing you to aid these Autobots in their war effort? Mika finally asked. And not without giving something in return. Momo insisted. The Autobots are the whole reason why we did so well in the sports festival. And your daughter even interned at another secret government agency called GI Joe, which is practically made up of heroes. The creation user wore a wistful smile as she remembered the internship. It was honestly really great, we even got to go on a mission with them and the Autobots before it ended. Inko could feel tears welling up in her eyes. They were ones of sadness, but also ones of pride. My baby, Izuku. I would have never thought he'd be doing anything like this. Mika took a deep breath, leaning against the cell bars as Kyotoko and Inko just stared quietly. Our little girl has been surviving in a secret war for, who knows how many months. Hey, she's a tough one, I've always said it. Kyotoku smirked. She's still getting super grounded, though. Oh, totally. Mika affirmed, lying to her parents. That cannot go unpunished. She raised a brow over to Momo. And I doubt that yours will be all that impressed either, Momo. Despite the situation, Momo couldn't help but give a breathy chortle. HMPH, no, I imagine not. Still, we shouldn't worry too much. The adults perked their heads up at her words, only to see her give them a wink. Because I left something at my house that should be able to help them and the Autobots get us out of this mess. We just have to wait until they find it, and then, the trump card can be played. Musudafu, Japan. As he walked up a sidewalk along the coast, Toshinori Yagi took in a deep breath, enjoying the salty sea air. He often took these little strolls on nights where things weren't so hectic with hero work, and, so far, at least, tonight had been one of those. It was a habit he had formed ever since the beach had been cleared all those months ago, and every time he passed by, his first thought was always how proud he was of his pupil. A part of me still can't believe he did all of this by himself. Toshinori thought to himself. Even before receiving One for All, that boy's been incredibly persistent, and look at him now. I can hardly recognize him after all this time. Beast. The number one hero paused in his stride and his hand reached down, procuring his cell phone from his pocket. Speak of the devil. He smiled, seeing his pupil's message pop up. Wonder what he's got to. I.e. Before he could even open the message, though, Toshinori's head snapped up and he whirled around toward the beach. Monster. A woman shrieked. His eyes widened when, indeed, something quite monstrous came bursting out of the ocean and onto the beach. With its long body and snout, along with its green, leathery hide, the hero immediately recognized it as a crocodile that was about 30 times its normal size. The beast roared and immediately began terrorizing the locals, whipping its tail and snapping its jaws. Gah! He peered down at his phone, noting Izuku's message. It'll have to wait. Sorry, young Midoriya, but there's work to do. Concentrating hard, the hero entered his muscle form and leapt right onto the beach, slamming down into the sand and instantly calming the crowd with his signature phrase. Fear not, citizens. This catastrophic crocodilian will have no place to hide. Because in a single bound, All Might was in front of the massive reptile, making its eyes widen. Pulling back a fist, the number one hero gave it a single punch, which sent it flying down the beach. Here, as the monster landed on its back and roared in pain, though, All Might couldn't help but note something after landing his blow. Weird. It appears to be flesh and bone, but that felt like metal. All Might. The pro lifted his head up in time to see Kamui Woods and Mount Lady come rushing onto the scene, the former swinging down from a nearby building while the latter grew to her immense size. We heard the commotion from the streets. Woods explained. What's going? Oh, the two heroes were left surprised by the monstrous reptile getting back to its feet, roaring at them in challenge. Well, not every day you see something like that. What even is it? Mount Lady asked. Think it's from Australia or something. All Might shook his head, though. While I wouldn't be surprised by that, I think we're dealing with something else. I punched that thing and it felt more metal than flesh. Be on your guard, you two. The duo nodded to him and they went in, ready to deal with the threat. Far away from the scene, a certain rich couple were coming to terms with everything they were being told and had seen. Their daughter and her friends had been interacting with giant, alien robots and aiding them in their war for at least the past 4 months. Basically since the start of the school year. It was quite the hard pill to swallow, but they couldn't deny what was in front of them. Massive robotic organisms that peered down to them like they were ants. Though thankfully, the Autobots didn't view them as such. Still, it was almost too incredible for words, and Taro and Yua had to take a seat to digest it all. That was quite the story. The Yaoyorozu patriarch nodded. Yua took a deep breath, placing a hand to her forehead. Our daughter has been aiding alien refugees in a war to take back their planet from a cruel dictator. I don't know whether to be proud or raving mad. Optimus, who was still knelt in front of them, bowed his head remorsefully. Once again, I profusely apologize for my involvement in your daughter getting involved with us, Mrs. Yaoyorozu. ZRKT, hey, don't point fingers, ZRKT, at yourself. Bumblebee interjected, stepping forward to place a hand on his chest while locking his optics on the family. ZRKT, I'm the one, ZRTK, that messed up at ZRKT, the USJ. ZRKT, I'm guilty as charged, ZKRT, for getting her, ZRKT, involved. For as piecemealed as the mute Autobots' sentences were, the Yaoyorozus could still understand him. Does he usually speak like that? Yua asked. Bumblebee's vocal processors were damaged a long time ago. Izuku answered. He talks through the radio, but I'm sure he means every word he said. All the same, Taro let out a sigh and shook his head. Prime, Bumblebee, I'm not upset with either of you two. His gaze went straight to the teens, who lowered their heads in shame. If anything, I'm more disappointed that you didn't let these kids trust any of us, their parents, with this secret. Optimus bowed his own head once again. And I am truly sorry about that. But we must keep our presence on this planet a secret to as much of the populace as possible. His visibly winced beneath his faceplant. Granted, lately that has not been very successful. However, even then, there is very likely little chance that our secret will remain that way forever. Kyoka raised a brow up to the Autobot leader. Wait, so even though we're keeping this secret, you expect it to get out to the world sooner or later? I would prefer later, but yes, I do. Prime nodded. After all, I don't expect Megatron to remain on Cybertron forever. And when he arrives, I also anticipate him to bring an incredible amount of ordnance with him. Yeah, but that's a problem for another day. Bulkhead piped up, clenching a fist with a wrathful expression. Right now, we've gotta save Momo, along with Izuku and Kyoka's parents. Swindle's always been a piece of scrap, but he's gone way over the deep end. He let out a huff and his shoulders slumped forward. After this, though, I wonder if us Guardians should just constantly remain outside of our partners' homes, in case this ever happens again. The large Autobot's words caught the attention of the Yaoyorozus, with Taro standing up and questioning him. Guardians. What do you mean by that? Optimus wasted no time answering. It is just as he says, Mr. Yaoyorozu. I have assigned specific Autobots on my team to watch over the children during the day and then escort them home by nightfall. In the event of a Decepticon attack, their job is to defend their charges, by any means necessary. His optics shifted down. However, I did not anticipate a threat like this to be brought directly to their doorsteps. The Decepticons would not attempt such an operation, or else risk their own cover being blown. But Swindle and MECH have proven to not be beholden to the same hindrances. Taro furrowed his brow to the Autobot leader. Well then, tell me, who is Momo's guardian? Who here is responsible for her safety? Everyone fell silent at that, sharing downcast expressions before Optimus replied. I believe it is time you met her. He reached up to his helm and activated his comlink. Erezer, bring Windblade in, please. They wish to meet her. Once the message was relayed, Prime set his gaze back down to the frustrated father. Before you see her, please understand, Windblade has been utterly beside herself since we were given the news. Taro acknowledged. Not half a minute later and through the large entryway came two more bots, both female and with wings on their backs, but those were literally the only similarities they shared. One was mainly brown and gold with hints of orange and was oddly bird-like. The other, meanwhile, was red and black with gold and blue accents that resembled a geisha, and of the two, she appeared to be the most distraught. It didn't take Taro long to deduce that this one was Windblade. Erezer, thank you for being by her side. Optimus expressed his gratitude. It is my pleasure. Erezer assured, her hands secured across Windblade's shoulders in comfort. After all, she has been helping me regain my memories. I owe her so much more. The Maximal found the Yaoyorozus and nodded to them. Sir, madam, if I could. Windblade brought her hand up and put it over the bird bots, gently removing it. I need to speak with them one-on-one. Please. While she was hesitant to do so, she could tell by the tone in her voice that Windblade was set on this, and Erezer wasn't about to deny her. Very well. But know that you have all of us here at your side. She smiled to her city-speaking friend. A brief smile could be seen on Windblade's features, though it didn't last long as her full attention went to the Yaoyorozus. Taro wore a more serious countenance while Yua seemed to look upon her with sympathy, though Windblade could tell that both of them were equally worried about their daughter. As did she, and the sheer guilt from that fact alone was what made her drop to her hands and knees as she stepped up to the two, shamefully lowering her head in the process. Mr. and Mrs. Yaoyorozu, words cannot express how sorry I am to the both of you, she started. I failed you, the Autobots, and most importantly, your daughter. I wasn't there when she needed me most. I could have prevented all of this from happening, but my stupid cover prevented me from that. Windblade lifted a fist and slammed it down into the floor, cracking the cement. I'm a failure, not just as your daughter's guardian, but as her friend. I should have, if only I could have. Enough. Taro spoke loud and firm, his arms crossed over his chest and scaring Windblade out of her stammering. He kept his serious expression as he stepped up to the city speaker, and she could tell that she was under heavy scrutiny just by his unbreaking stare alone. But, much to her surprise, he didn't sound angry. His tone was strong, but distinctly not laced with rage. I just want to know one thing. How much do you value Momo? Windblade didn't even need to think twice. Immensely, sir. Ever since we met, I could tell that she and our friendship was special. And it's always frustrated me that I could never do more to protect her, both because of my cover, and due to my alternate mode. Is that so? Yua said, entering the conversation. What do you transform into, then? In response, Windblade extended her wings out from her back, showing off her VTOL fans. A jet, she answered. A very conspicuous jet. I see. Taro placed a hand upon his chin. Well then, we're just going to have to fix that problem, won't we? Windblade blinked in confusion, wondering what he could mean. I'm sorry, sir, but I don't think I understand. But Taro extended a hand to her, his features finally shifting from a light glower to a grin. I'd think that'd be obvious, wouldn't it? From here on out, you, Windblade, are permitted entry into our home. This, understandably, left everyone slack-jawed, all except for Yua who smiled in support. I can tell, you have quite the strong friendship with Momo, and it's for that reason that you should be allowed to guard her from threats without hindrance. There was a long pause as Windblade's processor tried to deal with the information, but she just couldn't fathom what she had just heard. I'm sorry, but what, sir? You heard him correctly, dear. Yua smiled to her in reassurance. From there on out, you'll be allowed on our mansion grounds, both in robot and vehicle mode. If it means better security from our daughter once we get her out of this mess, then you are more than welcome. We'll even swear our staff to secrecy. But can they all be trusted? Of course, they can. Taro placed a fist over his chest. I make sure to hire the most trustworthy people I can find, and my heads of staff are all government-trained professionals. They know a thing or two about keeping secrets. His attention went back to the Autobot leader. Of course, my permission will also require Optimus Prime's consent as well. What do you say, sir? Much to Windblade's surprise, Optimus gave a nod of approval. I say it's a very good idea. Windblade, I believe that this move is the most prudent one to be taken after these events. I know, it's just, Windblade set a hand to her forehead. Oh, Primus, this is happening so fast. Her optics moved between Optimus and the Yaoyorozus, all while she finally came to grips with the offer. But, you're right. If it'll allow me to better protect Momo, then I'll do it. She politely bowed to the married couple. Thank you for allowing me into your home, Mr. and Mrs. Taro. The Yaoyorozu patriarch interrupted. My name is Taro. Bowing her head back, Yua properly introduced herself as well. And feel free to call me Yua, dear. And if anything, we should be thanking you, for protecting our daughter from the Decepticons up until now. However, you now have a new mission. Putting on a determined face, Yua pointed up to the city speaker. You must get her back from these ruffians, and make sure they have hell to pay for stealing her away. Is that understood? Windblade didn't have to think twice before she saluted. Crystal, ma'am, and again, thank you so much. Of course. So, what's the plan? Taro asked. That's the thing. Sideswipe rubbed the back of his neck. We kinda don't have one yet. Sunstreaker admitted. The humans all immediately facefaulted onto the floor, with Kyoka being the first to get up. What? How do you guys not have a plan of attack yet? Our parents and my best friend have been stolen. Jazz raised his hands defensively. Kyo, slow your roll. Ya gotta remember here, we have no clue where the heck they've been carted off to. Correct. Optimus intervened, raising a calming hand. Swindle and MECH could be hiding out anywhere in any part of the world, though I suspect that they must be closer than we think. After all, I doubt they would bring their captives far from Japan if they intended on making their demands known in the morning. The Prime clenched his hand into a fist. But rest assured, we will find. BZZT**BZZT**BZZT. At that moment, a loud alarm began blaring loudly, along with a bright red light that flashed throughout the room. What's happening? Yua exclaimed, drawing closer to her husband. Are we under attack? No, that's the urgent transmission alarm. Red Alert explained as he went over to the console, where May was still sitting. We're receiving an emergency call. After typing in a command, the call was answered, and to the astonishment of everyone, it was none other than the number 1 hero. All Might. Gah. Red, good, you picked up. All Might replied as something was happening from off-screen, sand being kicked up everywhere as yells and grunts of exertion could be heard in the background. Apologies for the shaky camera, but this is the best I can do for now. We've got a situation here at Dagoba Beach. Is Prime there? He is, as are Izuku, Kyoka and nearly every other Autobot. Red replied. Izuku took that as his cue to run into the conversation, using full cowling to climb up onto Red Alert's shoulder. All Might. What's going on? The pro-hero flinched and his signature smile turned sheepish at his pupil's presence. Why, young Midoriya, I didn't expect you to be there. I got your message, but it was right as all of this popped up and, go. Without warning, something suddenly came swinging in from off-screen, which All Might had to catch in his arms, making him disappear from the screen. Give me a second. RRAAAGH. He tossed whatever it was away, and the group were greeted with brief glimpses of Mount Lady and Kamui Woods as they went in to keep it. Sorry, we've been dealing with this thing for several minutes now. All Might pointed his phone at what they were fighting, revealing it to be an absolutely massive crocodile, the beast snapping at Mount Lady's feet as Kamui tried in vain to restrain it in his lacquered chain prison. But all of the branches were broken within seconds by the beast's powerful jaws, right as it bit down on the large woman's toe. Yeah. Mount Lady. Kamui leapt onto the beast's muzzle and grabbed it, his fingers planting deep and expending into its maw before he pulled with all his might. But just as he thought he had the upper hand, the croc actually opened its mouth at an unexpected speed, which sent Woods flying back like he was launched from a catapult straight into the ocean. Og. Oh wow. Mount Lady rubbed her foot, now bleeding through the boot as she glowered at the croc. Oh, now you're gonna get it, you little creep. Propped up on her knees, the growing hero slammed her fists down repeatedly to crush the croc, but it was surprisingly speedy with its dodging. Directing the camera back at himself, All Might continued as Prime entered the scene. As you can see, it's been quite the struggle. Izuku and the other humans were left perplexed by that. All Might, can't you just beat that thing in one punch? That's what I'm hesitant on. The first time I punched it, I felt something strange. This beast's hide didn't feel leathery like an organic crocodile, it felt metal. The hero's gaze went to Optimus in concern. I can only assume that it may be a Predacon who's got a really good disguise going for him. Optimus' optics narrowed at that, quickly coming to the same conclusion. You'd be correct, my friend. That is no doubt Skullcruncher, Swindle's right-hand bot. He must be trying to divert your attention away from the true problem at hand. All Might's brow furrowed. Problem? What's going on? Young Midoriya, does this have to do with your message? It does. Izuku answered solemnly. All Might, my mom, Kyoka's parents and Yaoyorozu were all kidnapped by Swindle. He's teamed up with MHA to help his dirty work. Within seconds, the smile on All Might's features disappeared, replaced with a wrathful scowl. What? It's the truth, All Might, sir. Taro piped up, leading Yua into frame so the hero could see. We're Momo's parents, and, well, we were personally told by Silas that if we want her back, we'd have to pay him a significant ransom. His teeth clenched and features etched with rage, All Might's glare went straight up toward Skullcruncher. That is, deplorable. He briefly glanced back at Optimus. Do you want him brought in alive, my friend? Of course, but allow me to send you some backup. Optimus typed in a command into the console, bringing up a radar system that displayed an Autobot signal moving across Japan. Just as I thought, Jetfire is approaching your location. I will have him divert his path and he will help you bring Skullcruncher down. Ha, excellent. All Might's grin briefly returned. I don't think I've met Jetfire yet. This should be fun. Once we wrap things up here, we'll join you as soon as we can. Optimus gave a single nod. Understood. Best of luck, my friend. Prime out. Once the transmission was cut, the Autobot leader sighed and shook his head. It seems that MECH specifically planned to keep All Might preoccupied while they executed their scheme. They have obviously prepared for this ahead of time. Maybe, but we're going to bust their plan wide open. Strongarm vowed. Just as soon as we find out where they're hiding out. Springer reminded. Which could take a long time if we have to search the entire country of Japan. Breeing. All heads in the room flew up at the distinct sound of a phone ringing, to which Taro reached into his pocket and apologized. Oh, sorry, that's me. He peered down to the caller ID on his phone and his eyebrows flew up. John. Taro answered the call, his voice laced with hesitancy. He wasn't sure if this was good news or not, and that made him nervous. Hello. Sir, thank God I got a hold of you. Agent Barker sighed. John, you're supposed to be resting. Not when the young miss has been kidnapped, sir. The lycanthrope user denied, clearly irritated by the notion. As the head of security, it was my job to keep her safe, and I failed. I failed to see that this perpetrator was government trained, and because of that, Momo is gone, so now, I must get her back, by any means necessary. Taro's features were etched with frustration, but he knew there was no keeping his best agent down. You mean it's our job to get her back? Do you have a plan? I'm working on it, but we've found something very interesting at the mansion that may help with that. How soon can you return? Glancing up to Optimus, the rich man was given a nod by the Autobot leader, who heard everything. I'll be there in a few minutes. See you then. With that, the call ended, and Taro craned his head back to the Autobots. I don't suppose you can whip up one of those ground bridges to my home, can you? From the main console, Mei hopped up to her feet and sent him a salute. Sure thing. Just need longitude and latitude and we can get ya there in a snap. Let's save Yaomomo. Once the proper coordinates had been given, the ground bridge was activated and a group of Autobots gathered up, Optimus, Windblade, Bumblebee, Jazz and Bulkhead, with Izuku and Kyoka going with their respective guardians. Taro and Yua, meanwhile, went with Optimus himself. We cannot wait, Prime declared, giving his medic a nod. Red alert, contact Jetfire and tell him to head straight for All Might's location. We will be back as soon as we can. He raised a hand to the portal. Autobots, transform and roll out. All at once, the bots did as he ordered, zooming through the vortex before it closed behind them. Sideswipe let out a huff and sat down, placing a hand on his helm. Man, this whole thing sucks. For once, we agree. Strongarm empathized, leaning against the wall next to him. Her optics shifted to the ground sadly. Poor Momo, and Windblade, too. I know what it feels like, to you've failed your partner. Hey, the whole thing with Ingenium wasn't your fault, you know. Sideswipe argued. No, but failing to stop Stain before Tenya got to him was, the cadet contended. But before Sideswipe could counter her point. BZZT**, BZZT**, BZZT. Another emergency alarm rang through the base, making Red Alert groan exasperatedly. Oh, by Trion's beard, what now? He answered the call, though this time there wasn't any video feed with it. This is Red Alert, who is? Red. From the other end of the call, Ochako and Itsuka practically screamed, taking all of them aback. We need help. May did a double take at the double voices herself. Whoa. Pink cheeks, karate girl, what's going on? We're being attacked by a giant old man. Ochako answered. He's trying to catch us. And our parents. Itsuka added. Kyoko was right. The Autobots were immediately on high alert as Red typed into the console, bringing the radar up once again. Scrap, scrap, scrap. Thankfully, the map held a promising outcome, as 2 Autobot signals were closing in on the girls' location. Girls, RC and Flare Up are nearly there. Just hold out for a bit longer. Easy for you to say. Ochako shrieked, only to be tackled to the ground by Itsuka as another table went flying over their heads. Ah, we're sitting ducks out there. And we got separated from our families. Please, tell them to, crash, ha. The girls gasped as Colossus Rhodes slammed down in front of their hiding spot, slowly making his way toward the cornered duo. The massive man slammed his fist into his palm with an insidious smirk. Hee, oh, I'm gonna get a great payday after this. First you, then your folks. This is gonna be, smash, huh. Wood splinters went flying off of Rhodes' back as he felt something break against his spine, causing him to turn around. There, he saw a rather fearful pair of men staring up at him, though they did their best to appear as angry as possible to mask their distress. Leave our daughters alone, you monster. Ogura snapped. Isamu held the remaining chair leg in his hand, ready to use the splintered end. We've already called the police. The heroes will be on their way. Colossus Rhodes simply let out a laugh. Ha ha ha, you think they can get here in time to stop me? He reached down and batted away Isamu's weapon with ease, before then grabbing the 2 men by their necks and holding them up to choke them out. Hee, we'll be gone long before they arrive. Dad, Itsuka shrieked. Daddy. Getting to her feet, Ochako instinctively went in to touch Rhodes' back and make him float. I may get in trouble, but I'm not about to let them die. But, just as her fingertips were about to make contact. Crash *shum *thunk. The girls cried out in shock as something flew in through a window and stuck itself into the wall between them and Rhodes, which made the large man spin back around in surprise. What they saw was, quite unusual. It was a spear, but not just any run-of-the-mill spear, but a very ornate one. Its handle was red and quite long, with a golden clasp at the very end. It had to have been made of some type of metal just at a glance, but the business end of it was where it really showed how stylized it was. It began with a golden dragon head with its mouth opened up, making the actual jagged spear head resemble flames spewing from its maw. The spear head was mostly black with red detail, and the edge of the blade was gold as well. Neither Itsuka or Ochako had any idea what to make of it. What the hell is this thing? Rhodes grumbled. Just then, the sound of the door being kicked open caught their attention. In the doorway was a lone Japanese man, who was standing on a red hoverboard that had 4 stabilizers sticking out of the front and back ends, making it resemble a drone. There was also a strange box that was attached to the underside of the board, which was cleverly hidden by decorative yellow cloud pieces on each side. If one was far away enough, they would have mistaken him to be riding on an actual cloud. But, more importantly to Ochako and Itsuka, he was dressed like a hero. He wore a golden spandex suit with matching gloves and boots, with heavier armor across his body. He had a black chest piece, shoulder pads, arm bracers, shin guards and even 3 waist skirts hanging from his silver belt, all of them with red trimming. The man himself was quite handsome, with tanned skin and wild, blonde hair that had a red streak in it. He also wore a rather cocky grin as he hopped off his hoverboard, allowing it to fly above him. "Hey, sorry, that's mine." Reaching out, the man actually summoned his weapon back to him, and once it reached his hand, it played a techno tune and declared, "Ryuko no Geki." Rhodes sneered, tossing Ogura and Isamu away. Their daughters and wives immediately went to check on them as the villain approached whoever this was. And just who the hell are you supposed to be? A hero passing through. Without losing his smile, the man narrowed his eyes at Rhodes in irritation. "And I gotta say, you picked a bad time to attack a restaurant, big guy." He began pacing the room, standing off against Rhodes as the bigger man remained in guard. "I was just on my way to my brother's place, got a call from him saying my niece has been kidnapped." Overhearing this, both Ochako and Itsuka felt their jaws drop. "Did he say, niece?" the brunette asked. Itsuka could only nod silently. The blonde hero raised his weapon at the mercenary. "You wouldn't happen to have anything to do with that, do ya? 'Cause it seems like you're focusing all your energy on these families only." HMPH, well, that's pretty presumptuous. Rhodes shrugged his large shoulders. "What's it matter anyways?" A chuckle passed the man's lips, before reaching up to the dragon head on his spear. "It matters, because it'll depend on how hard I'll kick your butt." He opened the dragon head and then snapped it back down, causing the spear's black part to start glowing green. And along with it, came some cheery music and rhythmic chanting. "Dora, Dora, Doragon. Dora, Dora, Doragon. Dora, Dora, Doragon." Raising his spear up, the man pointed it straight at his hoverboard, setting his finger upon a hidden trigger near the base of the molded dragon head. "Dragon armor, on." He pressed the trigger down and sent a signal up to the board, causing the box underneath to burst open and send down 2 pieces of armor that clamped down over his chest. It was comprised of shimmering golden scale pieces, and had a circular red and black emblem in the center that was clearly based on the head of an Asian dragon. In addition, a black, open-face, chitin war helmet with red trimming and a red feather sticking out the back hole came down and slid over his head, completing the overall aesthetic. Choichiryu. ACHHOOOO. The armored hero, with his staff in hand, stamped the butt end of his weapon upon the ground, causing the entire room to shake. The Uraraka and Kendo families, along with Colossus Rhodes himself, stared slack-jawed at the staggering power he displayed. Who the hell are you? Rhodes demanded. Pressing the side of his helmet, a golden V-shaped visor came down over the man's eyes, his smile and glare unwavering. "My name is Jiro Yaoyorozu. But most people know me as the Toradora hero." He widened his stance and swung his spear out, ready for combat. "Jiro Doragoku. Did he just say what I think he did?" Ochako whispered. "Jiro, Yaoyorozu." Despite the harrowing situation, Itsuka couldn't help but wear an amused grin. "Kyoka's gonna get a kick out of this when she finds out." Doragoku nudged his chin to the others, shouting to them, "You people, get out of here and wait for the other heroes. I'll take this idiot down." Rhodes went to spin back around, intent on preventing their escape. "Oh no you, Tong, Gia. Eyes on me, Buster." Having knocked him upside the head with his spear handle, Doragoku leapt up on the massive man's shoulder, wearing a toothy smirk. "Your fight is with me, remember? RRRAAH." With a single flip kick, the smaller man sent Rhodes flying into the nearby bar, spilling several drinks across the floor while the 2 families fled through the open doorway. "Good, they're out. Now to wrap this up quickly so I can get home." Bursting out of the wood, Rhodes shot up and back into battle, ignoring the fact that he was covered completely in wine and other beverages. "That's it. I don't care who you are. You're going down, little man." He swung his arm up and landed an intense uppercut on Doragoku, sending him flying straight into the air. Rhodes followed up with a powerful leap and then brought both fists down hard on Doragoku's back, propelling him into the floorboards. Once he landed, the larger man took Doragoku by the head and slammed him repeatedly into the floor time and time again, until all that was left was splinters and little bits of debris from the cement foundation. Once he was done, Rhodes tossed his victim into bar, all while breathing hard following the successive attacks. But just as he was about to walk away, "Hey, he, ha ha ha." A loud, boisterous laugh made Rhodes snap back around, right on time to see Dorogoku appear behind him. There wasn't a scratch on him, and his eyes were glowing with a golden aura as red lightning crackled around him. "Ha ha, that was fun, my turn." Swinging his weapon, Dorogoku struck Rhodes in the side, making the monster of a man fly straight through the wall to the outside. As that was happening, Ochako and Itsuka led their families out into the parking lot where many others had already escaped, the 6 of them trying to catch their breath. "Ha, ha, is everybody alright?" Akane asked, gripping to her husband's shirt as she glared up at him. "And what about you? What in God's name made you think that was a good idea?" Isamu raised his hands defensively. Well, what can I say? I went into protective dad mode." He thrust a hand out to his daughter. "What, did you expect me not to try and save Itsuka while there were no heroes around?" "Mom, Dad, please." Itsuka implored. "Not in the parking lot. There's a lot of people here and we don't need to cause a scene in the middle of all this." She smiled softly to her parents. "And besides, I'm okay. We're all okay." Isamu and Akane looked to each other and calmed down, both reciprocating their daughter's smile. "Yes, you're right," Akane agreed before taking on a more serious countenance. "Still, it's troubling that this is all happening. First your friend's parents, then your friend, and now us." Ogura and Osuna were also left troubled as they hugged their own daughter. "Yeah, what could they possibly want with us?" the Uraraka patriarch asked. "I'm just a construction worker." "Yeah, and I repair motorcycles for a living." Isamu voiced as well, only to hesitantly eye his daughter. "Unless, this has something to do with them being UA students. Could this guy be part of those League of Villains, people who attacked the school at the beginning of the year?" And just like that, Ochako and Itsuka's eyes lit up. They now had the perfect alibi. That must be it. Ochako concurred. "Those guys have been after us practically since day one. Some of my classmates went on their work study and ended up in a city where the League attacked." Osuna gasped in realization. "Ha, that's right, Hosu. Your classmates were caught up in all of that with them and the hero killer, weren't they? Oh God, is this what being a UA student is like? Having to live in fear?" I don't think so." Itsuka denied. "This seems like a more recent." Boom. All of a sudden, the wall of the restaurant exploded outward as Colossus Rhodes came flying through, landing in a heap on the ground. The crowd collectively gasped and shouted, backing away from the villain, only to then erupt into cheers as Dorogoku came flying out on his cloud hoverboard. He jumped off and landed on the roof of the restaurant, smirking down to his opponent. "Ya know, I've dealt with your kind before. Strength-enhancing quirks are pretty standard, and none of you ever learn that all your attacks do is feed me." Rhodes stood up, stomping in defiance. "First off, my powers aren't a quirk. They're tech-based. Secondly, what the hell do you mean I'm feeding you?" "Ah, tech-based powers, Well then, that doesn't make you so much a villain as it does a terrorist, then." Dorogoku swung his weapon around and raised a hand, his body still crackling with red energy. "As for what I mean, my quirk is called Kinetic Storm. I absorb the kinetic energy that my opponent dishes out and then absorb it into my body to use. I can either have it enhance my own strength, or use it all in one big burst." On that note, he pressed down on the dragon emblem in his chest, and it started up another round of music with an additional loud declaration. Doragon Ugi. As the fast-paced music played, the kinetic energy around Dorogoku began to surge even more, causing him to float up into the air. As this happened, the energy also began taking on a more distinct form, the bolts creating a serpentine shape with 4 legs and a large, horned head with long whiskers. Finishing with a tail that had energy, feathers, at the tip, the kinetic force around the hero had taken the form of a golden dragon, which reared back its head and opened its maw, amplifying his voice into a mighty roar. Go! The energy dragon then flew right down toward Colossus Rhodes, who was so stunned by the sight that he almost didn't move. Rhodes did try to fight back, but when he pulled his arm back, he heard something go crack in his body. He looked down and saw that he was bleeding from the ribs, and no doubt a few of them were broken. Damn it. Lightning Dragon Flash. Gekiruyunomai. Ah-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. With its mouth still wide open, the kinetic energy dragon bit down on Colossus Rhodes, with Dorogoku landing in a crouch behind him while holding his spear out. The very next second, a massive explosion engulfed Rhodes, sending a huge concussive wave throughout the area. In the aftermath, the energy pylons in Rhodes' back short-circuited, reverting him back into his skinny, frail form, right as he slammed into a car. I have seen a lot today, and yet somehow, all of what I just saw takes the cake. Itsuka stated, with the others silently nodding. As Dorogoku rose to his full height, he and the two families at the center of all this were taken aback by his true appearance. Huh, wow. Jiro slung his spear over his shoulder. Who woulda guessed this shorty could cause so much trouble? How in the world could technology do that to a tiny old man? Ochako wondered as well. No clue, but I'm about to find out. However, Jiro only took a single step forward before something happened. URK. Ow. His hands flew up to his head as he doubled over, his helmet falling off and spear clattering to the ground. ACH. See, come on. Really? Now. At this point, Rhodes had come to and saw Jiro struggling in place, which he took as an opportunity to discreetly activate the comlink in his ear. This is Rhodes, I've been incapacitated. I need an evac, I repeat, I need an evac. Despite his struggles, a certain voice in the back of Jiro's mind spoke to him, which was actually his own. This bastard knows where Momo is. If we wanna find her, in an instant, Jiro's eyes changed from gold to blue, and his hair went from blonde to silver, drooping down over his face. Even the streak in it changed from red to blue, all while his constant smile was replaced by a snarl, and a much more growly voice. We've gotta beat the answers out of him. The Uraraka and Kendo families were understandably concerned by what just happened. Sir. Ogura reached out. Are you okay? Back off. Jiro snapped, picking up his weapon all while the golden dragon armor over his chest fell off. With the press of a button, the spear's handle shortened to only about 1.5 feet long, while he manually grabbed hold of the spear head, and flipped it down to the side. In less than a second, the weapon had been transformed into a hand axe. Jiro opened and shut the dragon's head again, this time making the blade glow bright orange. Awaken. Titi Tiger. Titi Tiger. Titi Tiger. Jiro's hoverboard flew over him again, right as he raised his axe up to the black box once more. Tiger armor, up. He pressed the trigger and the box opened up, releasing a different yet similar armor set. This chest piece was much more angular than the curved dragon one from before, and the pattern on this one reflected that with hard, silver tiles and white trim. Even the helmet was slightly different, still mostly black but with a set of white horns on the side instead of a feather, while the open face was surrounded by more white trim. A blue visor slid down over his eyes, completing the change. Tora. Wakau. The hero took a more squatted position as he rested his axe on his shoulder, putting a hand to his chin before pushing it abruptly, resulting in a loud crack from his neck. Gra, now, we can get to business. Mr. Dorogoku? Isamu asked. Not here. Jiro denied as he stalked his way over to Colossus Rhodes. Right now, you've got me. He swung his axe down directly next to Rhodes' head, making the frail man quake with fear. Jiro Torbolt. TT Torbolt. The group uttered in fear. Lowering his face down to the terror-struck man, Torbolt growled out, now listen up, ya four-eyed freak. You're gonna tell me exactly what I wanna know. Where the hell are you people hiding my niece? Rhodes flinched and raised his arms in surrender. Oh okay, I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Torbolt grumbled eagerly, as if he wasn't completely satisfied with the answer but let him continue. The key to finding your niece is with one single word. Torbolt narrowed his eyes. And what's that? Bye. Right then, Rhodes' dread switched on a dime, flashing Torbolt a confident smirk before vanishing in a flash of light. What? Whipping around in all directions, Torbolt was left dumbstruck and boiling mad. Gone. He was completely gone. RRRRAAAAUUUGHHH. Swinging his axe, the hero nearly cleaved it straight through a nearby streetlight, but he manually stopped himself with his other arm. GG goddamn it, Standing still for a moment, the man seemed to calm down, taking his helmet off a few seconds later to reveal that he'd gone back into blonde mode. That sucked. As the Urarakas and Kendos watched his armor fall away from his body, they almost didn't notice the sound of engines approaching from behind them. It wasn't until a certain pair of voices called out to the girls that they finally did. Ochako. Itsuka. Whirling around, the girls were met with instant relief as they saw RC and Flare Up arrive, the femmes pulling to a stop alongside a black car with a siren on top of it. The two Cybertronians holoforms left their vehicle modes and rushed up to them, the girls also running in to embrace their guardians. "Oh thank God that you're safe," Tracy exclaimed. "I'm sorry that we couldn't get here sooner." Sadie apologized as well. "I knew we should have bridged here," she added under her breath. Girls, it's okay, we're fine," Ochako assured, craning her head back to the hero in the gold and black spandex. "That guy over there, he saved us all." Sadie's eyes widened in surprise. "Is that so?" But then, she noticed Ochako's parents nearby and gasped. "Oh Ogura, Asana. Oh, my goodness, Sadie." The brunette woman approached the pink-haired girl, reaching out to grasp her hands. "It's so good to see a familiar face. You would not believe the night we've had. It was almost a disaster." "Almost is an understatement," Akane added. "But, at least everyone is safe," she trailed off when her sights landed on Tracy, and it didn't take her long to greet her with a smile. And you must be this Tracy girl that Itsuka's been going on about." Seeing the family resemblance, Tracy stood up straight and addressed the red-headed mother. "Why yes, ma'am, wait, you've been telling them about me." The big fist user only gave a shrug. "Well yeah, why wouldn't I? Thank you for watching out for our daughter in the big city," Isamu said with a bow. "It means a lot to us." Before the conversation could continue any further, however, a loud cough caught their attention. Apologies for interrupting, the group all turned to see a police detective in a long coat approaching them, along with an African-American man in a three-piece suit. There was also more police that had arrived and escorted the crowd away from the premises, leaving just them and Jiro in the parking lot. "I'm Detective Tsukauchi. And this is my associate, Special Agent William Fowler." Fowler flashed a badge. Sector 7. The four adults stared at the badge for a moment. "Never heard of it," Ogura stated. "And that's a good thing." Fowler put away his badge. "We have reason to believe that these recent reported kidnappings are connected with the man who attacked you here tonight." Osuna placed a hand over her chest. "Oh dear, does that mean they really are a part of the League of Villains?" Fowler shook his head. "No, they aren't. We're thinking they're part of a different organization entirely, one that's given my people problems in the past. We're not exactly sure why they're targeting you, but that's what we're intending on finding out." He briefly glanced to Ochako and Itsuka, flashing a quick smile before going back to the parents. "If it's okay with you all, we'd like to bring you and your girls in for a bit of questioning." Whoa, hold up there, Mr. Special Agent." Hearing Jiro's voice pipe up again, the group looked to him as he approached, his cloud hoverboard still following behind. "If these incidents are all connected, then I want in on this. I got a phone call from my brother saying that my niece was kidnapped, and I want to help bring down whoever these people are." "Your niece, she wouldn't happen to be one Momo Yaoyorozu, would she?" Tsukauchi asked. The blonde man nodded. "Yeah, that's right. I'm Jiro Yaoyorozu, Taro's younger brother. I was just on my way to the family mansion when this all happened." Fowler scratched his chin, all while a smirk formed on his face. "Jiro Yaoyorozu, EH. Oh, this'll be priceless." He cleared that thought from his mind and gave him a nod. I see. Well then, I think there may be a way that we can all help each other. Follow us, we'll get you hooked up with everything you're gonna need." "Oh, now you're speaking my language, sir." Jiro's lips curled into an eager grin, leaping up onto his board and propping his spear up on his shoulder. "Lead the way." As all of that was happening, things were both in a panicked and somber state at the Yaoyorozu mansion itself. The resident staff were all working hard to fix everything that had been wrecked by the archer, but it was hard for them to focus after the young lady of the household had been kidnapped. And that was exactly why Maurice, Tony and Takaru were all gathered in the heiress room, they were waiting for their trusted friend and employer to return in hopes that they might be able to locate her. For a long time, they simply sat in silence, though a certain Oni quirk user was getting antsy. Tony Vista had never been one for patience, but the situation she was in did not help. Not even reading her favorite manga was helping calm her nerves. Gah, damn it. She threw the paperback across the room, grabbing her club with a harsh growl. What the hell is taking so long? I thought Taro said he'd be here soon. All depends on what soon is defined as, Tony. Takaru reminded. Indeed. Maurice concurred, resting a hand on her shoulder. Come, Tony, let's all take a deep breath and do not tell me to calm down, Maurice. Tony yelled with a harsh glare. Don't you get it? We failed. All at once, her anger dissipated into despair as she fell to her knees, slamming her fist on the floor in frustration. It was our job to protect Momo, and we let some pointy-nosed, buck-toothed jerk with sticks get the better of us. We let her down. Maurice shared a look with Takaru, the two men feeling downtrodden themselves. I agree. It was far from one of our best moments. All the same, he offered Tony a smile and returned his hand to her shoulder. But that's what we're gathering together for, to find the young miss and get her back. Just then, the door opened, bringing everyone's attention to Agent Barker as he stepped in. And that's exactly what we're going to do. They're here, and they've brought friends of young miss. The three of them stood at attention as Taro and Yua entered the room. In addition, behind them were a couple of teenagers who the staff assumed were Momo's friends. Everyone, allow me to introduce Sir Midoriya and Miss Jiro. Izuku did a double take at that. Sir. Kyoka, however, liked the sound of that. Ah, come on. She nudged her best friend in the arm. Having formal titles around here ain't so bad. It's a pleasure to meet the both of you. Maurice greeted before setting his sights upon his employer, to which he and the others bowed their heads in shame. Sir, ma'am, we profusely apologize for. But Taro quickly dismissed that. Let's save the I'm sorries for later, shall we? We have a much more important matter to settle. His brows furrowed to his chief of staff. Tell me, Maurice, what did you find? And how will it help us locate my daughter? Takaru was the one to answer, retrieving an oddly shaped device from the bed. It's right here. We found it hidden in her closet, where we told her to hide. Taro took hold of the device and inspected it, though it didn't take him long to figure out what it was. This is a tracker. All at once, his and Yua's expressions changed to that of joyous smiles, along with everyone else in the room joining them. Ha ha ha, our little girl is a genius. She always was a forward thinker. Kyoka noted. Just took her a bit of time to realize that. Activating the device, Yua and Taro waited with bated breath, but to say they weren't expecting the reading they got was an understatement. Oh Okinawa, the woman exclaimed. That's so far from the mainland. It makes sense, though. Taro deduced. They probably didn't want to risk us finding their secret base, so they established it away from most prying eyes. Raising a determined fist, Izuku beamed hopefully to the married couple. Okay, so now that we know where they are, we can form an effective plan of attack. But Barker placed a firm hand on the boy's shoulder, furrowing his brow at him. Ahem, I do not know what you're prattling on about, young man, but you are not going to do anything. Rather, we will be going to retrieve the young miss and… Hold it right there, John. Taro interrupted. These kids have as much stake in this as we do. These same people kidnapped their own parents, after all. And besides, there's literally no way we can stop them from coming. As the billionaire stepped over to the hole where the bedroom window once was, he received several confused looks from his staff. Why, sir? Tony inquired. But then, something started to happen. The room began shaking intermediately, as if heavy footfalls were slowly approaching from outside. Standing just beside the hole in the wall, Taro gestured out, right as something big stopped outside. Because the kids and these guys are a package deal. And they're our best bet in rescuing Momo and their parents. Leaning down so he could peer through the window, the visage of Optimus Prime left every single one of the mansion's top staff completely speechless. Greetings, all. The Autobot leader waved. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. So, what news do you have to share with us? I'm hoping it's good news. Windblade said as she practically climbed up and stuck her head in through the window, making everyone gasp. Because we've gotta act fast to save Momo. So, what's going on? After gawking at the robots for a few seconds, Barker slowly craned his head toward his boss. Sir. Yes, John. Taro grinned. What in the bloody hell? And it's the end of Season 2 Part 34 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.